Something like this. Hit it.
The Roger Report live morning show, weekdays at 9 a.m.
Say y'all, I was on Roger's panel a few times and I couldn't take it. The heat. I got out the kitchen. It was hot. I was sweating. I had to get out.
He's Roger, and he's right.
Check this out.
We can live or die. You choose. I have spoken to you a lot of times in hatred and anger, and you have not heard me. Well, you had better hear me today. If you won't listen to me when I make an appeal for the Negroes because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. You claim you love America. Well, we love America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillars. And then you think we have no right to ask for something? Is it too much to ask you to grant us human dignity? Should we be put down and shot to death for this request? If so, you can aim your guns. What the hell do you think we care about dying if you're going to deny us the right to live?
Good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Roger Report Live, the best show on social media. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and take a moment out to hit that like button, because this is where you're going to find the best content on social media, and you don't have to worry about it because you're going to have me right here to make sure that happens. And if you've already been coming to the channel for a while, then go ahead, hit that like button, because you already know what time it is, and you know that this is where you're going to get the best content on social media. It's not a mystery to you at this point. You've seen other people do it. You've seen other people do it well, but what you have not seen is anyone do it quite the way I do it. So make sure you hit that like button, and everyone, yes, everyone, take a moment out to share the content, y'all. There are so many people who need to get great content like this, and it's just a small thing you can do to help the world be a better place. And isn't that what we want at the end of the day? Don't we want the world to be a better place? Of course we do. So share the content out. Share it through your social media. Share it through word of mouth, or even text someone's phone. But do what you got to do to help spread the word. All right, folks. Today we are going to tackle a very interesting subject. We're going to deal with making American history great again, y'all. That's what we're going to deal with, making American history great again, all right? As you may have known, they're making a big deal because Trump had said some things that I'm pretty sure a lot of people have wanted to say, but he was bold enough to say it. But before we go too far into this, let me first give a shout out to people who help make things happen around here the way that they do, because I cannot do the same things without these folks. So everyone who steps up and becomes a financial contributor, you know, got to give them props, So shout out to Peasant the Legend. He is the sponsor of today's stream. Appreciate you big time, my brother. Appreciate you big time. Glad you've been rocking with me for a good while. You know, I haven't seen him on this new channel yet. He probably still trying to find us, but you know, everybody's coming back, so we all good. Everybody's finding the channel again, so we good. I'm sure we'll see him soon. So shout out to Peasant to Legend. He is the sponsor of today's stream. And let me give a few shout outs to some of the first people to check in this morning. Okay, a few shout outs to somebody to check in this morning. And y'all see there was something going on. Y'all see it? Shout out to Sarah B. Now I'm gonna look at this message real quick. She says, "Dang it, Trail, really? 75 minutes? Laugh out loud. Coffee here, damn it. Now, what Sarah thought was that she didn't get the number one spot. Obviously, Trail must have jumped in there beforehand. But I told y'all, I don't know what it is about the system. If you get in there too early, it ain't going to show you. So you got to figure out, because I can't tell y'all, you got to figure out when is the safe time to come in so you can be what we like to call around here, Highlander of today's stream. Shout out to Sarah B. She is the Highlander of today's stream. I don't know what to tell y'all. If y'all come too early, it ain't going to work. You got to get it just right. Sarah, believe it or not, I guess you had a woman's touch. But you got it just right. So shout out to you, Sarah. Shout out to you. Glad to see you. Hey, Sarah. Shout out to Floyd Thompson is in the building as well. Great to see you, my brother. He says, yay, yay. Glad to have you in the building. Glad to have you in the building. Tunnel Runner is here. What's going on, my brother? What's going on? J Dub is in the building. What's cracking, my brother? What's cracking? Great to see you here as well. We got Trash Bandit in the house. What's going on? All my hoes demonetized is in the building. Great to have you. Great to have you. We got Afro Merchant here as well. Shout out to you. And I'm gonna say, hey, shout out to Trail Bentley, man. You tried. You didn't show up. And I don't know why it doesn't show certain folks if they put something ahead of time. It ain't personal, Trail. It ain't personal, man. But shout out to you anyway. You were almost Highlander of the stream. I was saying. Sarah beat you to it, even though you beat her to it. You were almost Highlander of today's stream. All right, but I appreciate you, brother. I definitely appreciate you. Y'all, let's get on into this one now. We are looking at making American history great again. Now, I'm going to say, y'all, there's different sides to this coin. I'm going to try to cover, some of the things on both sides of the coin. So they're making a big deal because Trump said, hey, we need to make our history look a little better than what we're doing. We got all this slavery stuff going on. We got all this tragedy going on. We got all this nonsense that happened. Okay. Now, is Trump saying that slavery is good? No, of course, he's not saying nothing like that. Trump did acknowledge that slavery was a bad thing for Black folks. Shout out to Afro Merchant. He say, Roger be tweaking the stream and knock off the real Highlander. Me, Afro Merchant, I don't know what to tell you, bro. That's a heck of an accusation. While also saying you were the real Highlander. I'm just saying, man, there's something to gain. There is something to be gained in this accusation. You got to be real careful with accusations where there's something to gain. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I ain't saying it ain't real. I'm just saying we got to be careful when people make accusations. And there's something to gain. Got to do a real good, real good examination of what their story is. So, shout out to Afro Merchant with his claims of being Highlander of the stream, with his claims of it. Okay, we're going to let him rest with his claims. You hilarious, brother. You hilarious. Dang, he already got people rocking with him. Shout out to all my hosts, the monetize. He say, at Afro Merchant, I agree. The Roger Report Live got the algorithm set up. Ain't this a mess? We starting the mutiny in the chat already. But shout out to y'all. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to Randall Robinson. What's up, Blair? What's up? Glad to see you here, man. Glad to see you here. Okay, so let's get to it, y'all. We got Trump that made a statement, y'all. He don't want American history to be so ugly. Now, I can say I kind of understand. I kind of understand where it's coming from. You got to think about it like this, y'all. Trump is the president of the United States right now. We know this is his second term. He didn't go consecutively. He had to step down for a minute, but he came back. Okay, he came back, and now he's president again. So now he's president over these United States, and he wants to beautify that history. Now, I'm going to say this on Trump's behalf. Trump likes to beautify stuff. I'm going to give him that, okay? I'm going to give him that. Trump has always liked to beautify something that he's rocking with. I will say that about him. I don't think Trump is doing it out of the maliceness that other people have a perspective of. Trump always wants to say stuff is great, stuff is good, it's fantastic, especially things that's attached to him. So Trump will do that. Now, some people may jump right to what Trump is doing in his white supremacy thing, because a lot of people have bought into a lot of stuff that people have said about Trump in the past and the things that he's done. And Trump has built a reputation in the past before he became president about certain moves that he's made. Now, is Trump truly a white supremacist? I mean, that's always going to be a debatable topic. But the thing is, what white person ain't a white supremacist? Again, another debatable topic. You do have white folks who show up to be allies and people who rock with us to a certain degree. And you can kind of see some habits on them to say, oh, okay, but that one probably not a white supremacist. Okay. We got a couple folks in the chat. We know them being a white supremacist, not likely. Probably not over here. Okay. Now I ain't gonna say there ain't a white person who's a white supremacist who will listen to this channel, because they do stuff like that too. Okay, but at least the ones that have made themselves known, I doubt they would be white supremacists, because I doubt a white supremacist would be participating and enjoying being over this particular channel. So now, is Trump a white supremacist? That you can always debate it. He's done some things in the past that wouldn't make a good case for him. Okay. As far as what he's doing now, he's done some things that would give him some good debate on the other side. But at the end of the day, I think Trump wants to beautify his country. Okay, that's what I believe it is. Because he's president, he's the head of the country. He understands that there's a certain amount of reflection on him about anything that's going on in this country right now. So does Trump want to, have so much history that points toward how bad white people are? I don't think he does. And I think that's what it's about. Now, does he have a right to want to make white people look better? Absolutely. I want to make my people look better, so I totally get that. Now, the thing is, how do you go about it? Okay, how do you go about making white people look better when they've done so much stuff that makes them look bad? Now, that's the hard question there. How do you make white people look good? Now, the thing is, yes, you could have I think it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction to start removing certain things. And I understand there's even black folks who want certain things removed. I totally get that, okay? And shout out to Nice sometimes. He says he says late, but here. Hit the like button, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all, see, that's what I'm talking about. See, even when he show up late, he coming in with the right spirit. Y'all make sure y'all hit that like button too. Yeah, because y'all know y'all be playing me shady on the like button. I be giving y'all great content. Y'all be playing me shady. It's cool though. It's cool. But I remember. So now, how do you make America look better? Well, I think the knee-jerk reaction is to remove the symbols of America and their hatred toward people who were slaves, their hatred toward black people as a whole, and this very unique hatred they have toward black men. Okay? Because this country has always been for the hatred of black men. All right? Have black women got caught up in stuff like that a time or two? Yeah. Yeah, they have. You too close to a black man, well, then, something may hit you. Do women like that? No. Will they try to stay away from it? Sure. Okay. They used to rock with us for a while. I'll give them that. They did used to rock with us for a while. Things have changed over time. But now Trump, wants to present America that ain't where white people just ain't that bad. Now I got to be realistic about it. He's a white man. Of course, he wants to present a history that ain't that bad when it comes to white people, because he white. I get it. I'm not even mad at him for it, truth be told. Now, I would say this, there are people who argue to remove certain things and certain symbolism and things like that. And people came to certain conclusions at certain times. But now that we're in 2025, I don't argue for anything to be removed that shows just how racist white people are, just how racist white people have been in the past, you know, just how racist the near past has been. You know, everything is not 1,000 years away. These are not old stories about old civilizations. Okay, the racism that has been going on in this country is there's let's keep it real. It's foundational racism in this country. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. There is foundational racism in this country. And even though America has been able to achieve a lot of great things, let's keep it real. A lot of those great things were achieved because of the benefits of slavery. So now, if someone wants to fly a Confederate flag, do I trip about that? No. Let us know who you are. It is what it is. You can fly your flag. Now, they may see some consequences for flying that flag, but let them fly. You know what I'm saying? It's cool. And I think, unfortunately, even a lot of black folks need a reminder that racism is alive and well in this country. Now, I'm going to say this. Regardless of what you think of Donald Trump, you know, you're going to see how people are going to, quote unquote, take sides. Donald Trump wants to make white people look better. I do get that. But white people wouldn't look as bad if it wasn't for slavery and so much other racial negative history that reflects on them as a people. I totally get that. Trump being president, he wants to do something about it. You know, now see, this is the thing, y'all. Why do I say I ain't mad at Trump? Because I might do something the same way, just with doing it for a different result. Because I might say, hey man, let's tell the whole story. Let's be real about how bad slavery is. They ain't even got enough stuff in here to say how bad slavery is. That's the way I probably look at it. You know, we need to put in some more stuff to say just how these white folks got down back in the day. Okay? And we need to, really bring some exhibits to show how that slavery that they did back in the day, how the results of that are still affecting us to this day. And to remind people that back in the day ain't that long ago. Because when you say back in the day, a lot of times you're not referring to history from thousands of years ago. Usually you're referring to some decades, possibly maybe a century ago or less. But when you say back in the day, usually you ain't talking all that long ago. That's what it seems to be to me anyway. Now, is America considered a great country? Yeah, America is considered a great country. Is it a very real thing that America wouldn't be considered a great country if it wasn't for the benefits they got through slavery? Yeah, that's a very real thing. The benefits of slavery helped this country be great in the eyes of the world. If you remove the benefits of slavery, I don't know where America would be in the eyes of the world. But it wouldn't be in the same place. I don't believe that for a hot second that it would be in the same place. Now, is it cool for people to know what really happened? Yeah. It's their country. They live here. Shouldn't they know how their country got together? Shouldn't they know how their country was formed? Shouldn't they have an ideal of the persecution that one group of people put on other groups of people? Now I understand people say, well, we shouldn't make it like we give too much room for white people to take the rap for slavery. That's paraphrasing statements that someone supposedly made. They put too much of the focus on white people. Nah, I just say nah, they don't. Truth be told, there's not enough focus on white people. Now, why are conversations like this even coming up? Because Trump said what he said. But see, the thing is this. It wouldn't be considered such a big deal if America had did something to adjust for what it did wrong. Now, America ain't made no adjustment yet. And I think that is the real reason that things are seen the way that they are seen. Okay. Yeah, America had slavery. Yeah, America did terrible things to people. Okay. Yes, America will do more terrible things to black men in the future because that's what America plan is. It's always been their plan. It's gonna always be their plan 9 times out of 10, unless I see some real changes. Which I don't know if I will be alive long enough to see any real change in that regard. That America truly hates black men at this particular point. Okay, and America has done a few things. Now I do see somebody in the trying to come up. I'm gonna let folks up probably at the 30-minute mark. So just hold on, brother. Just hold on. Okay. Um, America don't like black men at all. Okay. Well, I won't say at all. If there are certain things, certain industries that are white supremacy approved when it comes to America. So I won't say at all. But they've never liked us at the end of the day. Black women got caught up in that somewhat because they wanted to produce more black babies, and so hey, let's get some black women to produce a black baby because we don't want the slaves producing black babies with our white women. So let's drag a few black women in here too. So more toward the end of slavery, they did go get some black women and start enslaving them too. So it is what it is. So they ain't never really liked us as a group. Now, slavery has come to an end. The quote unquote official end was in 1865. It never came to an actual end because as long as you are convicted of a crime, it is legal in America for you to be a slave. Now, the thing is, they would want that on the books, okay? Because that is something they could have changed at this particular point. You would think that in today's time that white folks could even get together and say, let's just totally eliminate slavery altogether whatsoever. But these are white people, y'all. White people as a group don't do stuff like that. As a group, white people kill, steal, and destroy. So you got a law on the book saying that you still can be a slave. Why would white people ever remove that from the books? No, it needs to be there because they want it to be there. The collective of white people, and I understand it's some white people who think they don't fall into that. You may not fall into it personally. I'm not talking about you personally. The collective of white people are pro-slavery. That's why it's still on the books. Every white person who's came into some form of power to do something to say, hey, let's just go and get rid of slavery altogether. Why are we leaving it as a clause that if you're convicted of a crime that you still can legally be a slave? Why are we leaving that as a clause? Because they cool with it. It's that simple at the end of the day. It ain't really much to figure out. They cool with it. It is what it is. Now, Trump, again, trying to make things that he's attached to look better. He doesn't want so much focus on the bad stuff. Now, I'm going to say it was a bad approach. Even if he's trying to do this where he's not going to come off as a racist, see, his solution was bad. His solution was bad. But see, this is where the solution could be problematic. I think if he really wanted people in general to see America as better, even though slavery happened, what you would now have to do was start adding all the great things that white people did to stop pushing racism so much. Okay? I think that would have been a better thing. Now, shout out to Randall Robinson. He says, my people are not naturally kind people as a whole. And, I can appreciate you acknowledging that. I definitely can appreciate you acknowledging that. Because me, I just say what I see. If people want to argue against it, they can. Sure, you can present some evidence. And that's why I say they as a collective, they seem to like to kill, steal, and destroy. That's what they like. That's how they like to get down as a collective. That's why I remember you always got to judge white people as individuals. But that's a good thing anyway, because you should judge people as individuals. Okay, you should. As best you can, you try to judge people as an individual. because I've been around some white people here. That now I'm not gonna act like I hang around white folks all the time because I don't. But I know a few cool white people. I say that I do know a few cool white people, and I can't treat them like I treat the collective of white people. Though we couldn't be friendly with each other at all. Okay, we couldn't be friendly with each other at all if I treated them the way I would view the collective of white people. It just wouldn't work. Okay, so now Trump looking to make America look better. I think a better approach for him to have done was say, hey, let's figure out all the good things white people did to help us become a better country. What are the great things white people did to help get rid of slavery? Matter of fact, let's get in there and amend that Constitution one more time so it doesn't just say that you only a slave if you're convicted of a crime. Let's kill that all the way, period. And let's even remove that. Now, I understand it takes a lot to change an amendment. Okay. You got to get a lot of people on board to change an amendment. Now, I'm going to say amendments have gone through because when they ask the American people on voting ballots, a lot of folks probably ain't even reading it, don't even know it's about an amendment. And, because the Constitution has been amended, people look at the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. We call that the Bill of Rights. But it's been a lot of amendments since then. A lot of folks haven't even really paid no attention to where the amendments came from. And I've said myself plenty of times, none of us are as politically savvy as we really need to be. That's just the reality. None of us are politically savvy as we need to be. Not myself, not anyone else who's ever joined the panel. I'm not saying there aren't, especially somebody like a Black Rube, definitely far more politically savvy than the average person. Okay, I would say that definitely far more politically savage than the average person. But from a general context, we all need to be a little bit more politically savvy. Now, Trump is trying to make America look great because it's Trump's America. He's associated with it now, and he'll be associated with America throughout history now because he's been a president. And he understands that, which is why he wants to make America look a little bit better than what it does. But see, the thing is, I think the real answer would be to add all the great things white people did to help end the negative treatment of Black people as a whole, and especially Black men to this day. But what can you present of white people to show what they have been doing to end the mistreatment of Black Americans? Okay, especially FBA Americans, because it seems to be something on our back. Okay, there seems to be a target on the backs of FBA Black men. All right, that target does not have to be there, but Trump hasn't did anything that I know of to remove that target. I will say that Trump hasn't done anything I know of to remove that target. So if you want to make folks look at things a little bit differently, you got to give them something different to look at. Now, I don't know if you can go through history and make show a lot of great things that white people have done along the way. I'm pretty sure there have been white individuals who've done this and done that. You can say some of their stories, because even back then there were white folks who did stand up and say, "Hey, man, we ain't got to do this to these people. They're not that bad. They're not animals." I'm sure it was some white folks who made that argument. Can you find out their information? Can you add their stories? If you want to make America look better, you got to add the stories of white people. Now, if you cannot add stories of white people, okay, if you can't get the stories corroborated, show some proof, and then add their story to the history, I don't really know if you can make American history better than what it was. Okay, it is what it is. You can't change history. The only thing you can do with history is decide what you will present versus what you won't present. So I think, you got to find out what white people did to help Black folks. And that's how you can help your situation. But I do think, again, y'all, Trump just wants things to look better because he's associated. Now, I got my main man, Chaos Rain is here. So I'm going to add him to the show. And Chaos, I'm gonna let you get in here and say what you want to say on this. You have the mic, my brother. Chaos, are you there? You're on the panel. Okay, maybe he stepped away. All right. Well, I'm gonna keep on ticking until he get back. Chaos, if you can hear me, you can join in when you're ready. Just let us know when you're ready, brother. Now, this is the thing, y'all. It's about reputation. Now, Trump's gonna have the lawyers go through the Smithsonian. Okay, see what they can.
I'm ready now, Roger.
Okay, all right. Well, go ahead, my brother.
Yes, it looks like this president is going to try to attempt to start wash away so-called slave history in America. So-called try to attempt. I say good luck to that. And the reason I say good luck to that, because America has a city to put relics of their conquests. What I mean by this, you see some of them when they kill an animal, right? They just don't eat the carcass. They put it as a mantle up to show how they conquered. But them sit there now saying, all right, we want to remove certain statues, certain figures. Hell, we might remove certain texts, maybe, if we get through the Smithsonian institution. We want to make everybody know this is a nice, good place and we're not racist. That's not happening. That's not logical. You get me? Because let me tell you a secret. I'm traveling right now, right? Everybody knows the history of America, and this president we have does not travel enough to understand what do other people know about America that we already trying to hide. The answers they know a lot, including the history of the enslavement here in America. So you could do that, but the problem is who are you really fooling? Are you fooling people that's already here in America that's black or ADOS that either want to care, don't care, or don't even know about the history? Or are you trying to fool the world? That should be the most important question you should ask. You get me?
Yeah, but I don't think he's trying to remove slavery from history. He's just trying to make it look better from a white people's perspective. I just think he's taking a bad approach to trying to make it look better for white folks. I don't think he's trying to say that it never happened. That's not the impression I'm getting at all. But Trump does have a reputation for trying to beautify anything that he's associated with. So
Okay.
I'm just looking at it. Okay, he's trying to beautify the history of America because now he's been a president here. So America is now associated with his name. His name is going to be in the history books. They can always throw Trump in America in a sentence and do something with it. So he's going to try to make it look better. I think the approach is not the smartest approach at all. I will say that.
Okay. All right. So let's have that conversation. All right. Is that the best approach? So in this attempt, we're not in a year yet of his presidency. I'm not sure if I can ask any black man. Come on, what you think steps he should do to make himself look good for the remainder of 3 years of his term? I should ask every black man.
There's a lot of answers that people could give to something like that. But the thing is, it's not about just making him look good. He wants to make history look better because he understands America's attached to him. You can't go back and change history. That's the thing about history. The only thing you can do with history is decide what you're going to present.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's trying to get people to present less negative stuff when you look at it from what the white people did perspective. And that's all he really can do because he can't change what happened in history. He can't stop people from getting lynched in history. It happened, You can say we ain't got to tell nobody somebody got lynched, or we don't have to say the full numbers of somebody got lynched. And I'm not saying that's what he's actually suggesting. We just know he wants to make it look a little better.
Well, I know a lot of black people, some women or whoever that they content on this, they think this is a problematic thing to the point where they say, "Oh, it looks like he's trying to erase slave history." And I'm saying, well, like you said, Roger, he's trying to make himself look better in his place in history for him and his group. You get me? So now, like, if to make yourself better, there's certain things you're going to try to attempt to scrub off. But all right, you can't scrub all history, even to the point where, like you said, like I said before, outside America, everybody knows the history of America.
Well, the thing is, history can always be hidden and people die off. See, that's a thing that and that especially white folks in power definitely understand. People die off. You know, your history ain't forever. It's only forever if it's known. When you stop telling the story and the people die off, it's not history anymore. Okay, because unless you got a record, there's no way to prove it. Now, the thing is, he wants to make white people look better throughout the history of slavery. Okay, or throughout the history of all the different injustices they've done here in America. Well, I mean, the only thing you can really do at this point, like I said earlier, is present what the white people did to help. Now, the question with that was what stories can you confirm that white people were doing to help? And, you know, you have to dig all that stuff up. You have to prove it happened. And then you can, you know, make it part of history. But unfortunately, you'll probably have some individuals doing things, and you won't really have too many white organizations doing things. Because I've always heard about some white people who joined some stuff to kind of help a little bit here and there, but them putting their own organizations together to fight it, I don't know if that really happened. I'm going to assume that at some point in time, white people had to have put something together to really fight against slavery and Jim Crow and all kinds of stuff. I got to assume some white person somewhere did it, but I wouldn't know what that would be. Other than I would say they did start the NAACP, but now you gotta look at the reputation of the NAACP to even throw them out there.
Well, like anything, the best approach is propaganda, like everything else. Like almost 100 and what is it, 10 years ago, when they first released what do you call it, Birth of a Nation, when it came out 2015, that's 110 years ago. They could take an alter approach. They could take Jim Brown and make a full solid movie. Because there's no movie on Jim Brown. He could start from that direction. You get me? Since you want to talk about
the thing is,
I would say find one of that was already proven factual. You can push that, tear it up like a nice way, tail it in a way, and that will be a start. But remember, the first war of anything, Roger, is you attack them psychologically, and what you do, you hit them with 1,000 images.
Yeah, but the thing is, he didn't start that way. He started with getting the lawyers together to start examining what's going on with the museums. That's literally where he's starting from, at least as far as what we know. This is the position he's already taken at this point. Now, the thing is, what are we going to do with the information? And again, I understand Trump's a person who wants to beautify anything that is associated with him. He is the president, so he cannot remove himself from American history at this point. That's something that anybody who's running for president needs to know and understand. You don't get to remove yourself from American history. Once you become president, you will always be associated with it. Now, the thing is, in his heart, maybe he does want to quote unquote help, and when I looked at these, I put a couple clips in there. I saw what the people were talking about. But matter of fact, I want to acknowledge this. Shout out to Randall Robinson. He says, I think it's white people trying to separate themselves from the horrible time. Randall Robinson, I would completely agree, because there's always been a bunch of attempts for white folks to kind of separate themselves from that time and say, well, that wasn't us. Now, see, this is where I think the problem is always going to be there, because they ain't paid yet. See, white folks don't want to just pay out, and they always got an excuse. Now, I'm going to say this about the whole reparations thing. All you got to do is figure out look at where people live, see what the going price for the average price for 40 acres and a mule is, give a person that check, call it a day. You ain't got to talk about it the way you don't want to talk about it anymore, because you didn't pay it. But as long as America refuses to pay, a lot of stuff is always going to be an issue. See, if you pay out, we ain't got nothing to talk about. It's like, somebody hits your car, whatever the case is, or somebody runs a car into your house. You know what I'm saying? Y'all argue, whatever the case is. But once you sue somebody and the check is paid out, the situation is over with. That doesn't remove all scars or anything like that. But between the two parties, the situation is over. Once somebody sues somebody, win the case, then they give them the check, boom. Now you can kind of walk away from it with some type of respect for each other. But America has yet to pay when it comes to the folks who were oppressed in America. When it comes to FBAs. And the sad part is they've paid other people for things that didn't even happen in this country. America has paid reparations to Jewish folks because of something they went through in Germany. And I see, once you make a move like that, then I got to look at you sideways when you won't pay reparations for people who were literally oppressed by this American government. It's that simple at the end of the day. If you pay the bill, ain't really a whole lot to talk about when it comes to these kinds. I mean, there's still something you can argue about how you're going to present this and present that. But the fact that America ain't paid the bill yet, it puts America in a bad position. So now the thing is, well, I guess we need to hide some of this or hide some of that. Now, I'm not saying Trump is saying to purposely go around and what he wants to hide or anything like that. He got people that's been assigned to take a look at stuff and figure out what's going to be considered the best move. But to me, the move just looks bad because at the end of the day, unless you're going to just simply add what white people were doing and fight how they were fighting against the whole time. Because the thing is, you want to paint this narrative. The white people wasn't that bad. Okay, well, find what the white people were doing to fight against all this stuff that was going on. You highlight that, and that's about as much as you can do. But if you start removing information on what actually happened, I think you automatically just look bad, especially with the fact that America hasn't paid. Now, Trump being president, he can't just make America pay by itself. I'm not saying that, and I know people would argue that he can't make America pay by itself. But if you really care, start a process to get a check cut. I think that's the best way to go about that, and there's people who disagree with that, but a lot of them going to disagree for a bunch of reasons or reasons of jealousy. I don't want them niggas to get a check and I don't get a check, But again, you can't change history. See, we can do a lot of stuff about what we can do moving forward, but you can't change history. History is history. So highlight some stuff some white people did. Like I said, I don't know everything about American history, but I know it was some white folks out there doing something, highlight that, put it next to what the black folks did, and that's the only way you can paint yourself a better picture and not really be called out. Because, we as black people, we can say what we want to say, but we can't, a white person who tried to help us is a white person who tried to help us. You can't act like they didn't exist. Okay, now, the only thing you can really argue about is how much of an impact they had. But it was some white people trying to help. All the stories that we have in history about what black people was doing, one of the more famous things is, Underground Railroad. Yeah, it was some white folks that helped with something like that. Okay, there was white people here and there that would help. So I'm pretty sure they got a lot of great stories to tell. If you worry about how their stories are going to sound compared to what the black folks did, well, hey, that's history. We can't do nothing about that. It just is what it is. So I think that's the only way to really deal with what he's looking at. But you still got to cut a check. So I don't know if Trump realized it, but he just made another argument for reparations again. That's what I believe he did. If you want to make America look better, and I'm not mad at him as being president of the country, and he wants America to look better, I think the best way for America to look better is to cut checks. You know, anybody who's FBA, look at what state they happen to live in. What's the average of 40 acres in that state? What's the average price for a mule in that state? Okay, this is what it is. Cut them a check. Now everything looks better. If you want to say, America's this, and I get it. He wants America to be a shining example of a country where people should want to come. I ain't mad. I can't be mad at a president who thinks that way for his country. That's how I would think for my country. If I was the head of America, okay, I would want America to be a great place for people to see and want to come to. I would want the citizens to appreciate being able to live here. You know, because everybody don't get to be born in America. It should mean something to you. There should be a good status that goes on with this country because it's your country. Now, people should feel that way about whatever country they happen to live in, you know, unless your country's just doing crazy stuff. So I love America because I live in America. I ain't trying to necessarily go anywhere else. Now, I understand you got the passport bros and all that type of stuff. I ain't saying people can't, but I like living here. And since I like living here, I want my country to look good too. So am I mad at his thought process of saying, let's make America better? No, I ain't mad at you want to make America look better. The thing is, just do it in a good process so it will actually be better. And to me, the first process you can do is to cut some checks. Because if you cut checks to the lineage of the former slaves, you eliminate a bunch of negativity immediately. You know, white people can feel good that they cut us some checks. Now, I'm gonna say this for all the white people who don't want black folks to get a check. Look, man, what can I say to you if you paid? Just think about that, y'all. You talk to a random white person, some stuff come up, they say something to you, you say something to them. You know, history will come up to a certain degree. But what do you say to a white person and they just paid us? You know? What do you say to them? Ain't really much I can say to you if you pay me. You know? How mad can I be if you supported me getting paid? It's hard to be mad at people that want you to get paid. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to be mad at those folks.
Roger. I had a assumption, like estimation, and I could see what's going on here. Why they're not even attempting, even this president, obviously, the first thing he does is start pay out and call it a day. I think the bill is HR 40. When I look at populations of the ones they do pay, do you know how small the population are by percentage? And I don't like going back to, but let's go there. These people are not even 3%, and they're getting payoff. But here in America, we're roughly, from what they say, and I think I had to question it, people that are descendants of slaves in America, they're roughly 10% of this population in America. That's a lot. You pay out of the small percent to the 10% here. Besides the other additional 5% that's not from here, that's foreign. So right now, because the population right now, as it stands, as black people generally, is now up to 50 million. Out of 50 million, 10% is descendants of slaves. So we can say roughly 40, 39%, 39 million. I don't know. But the point is this: I could see that if they're gonna pay, that could be a smart population.
No, I mean, ain't nobody said they're gonna pay. I just said that would be the right thing to do to make everything look better. Obviously, they're not trying to pay because look what he's doing, something to say, let's change what we're gonna present in history instead of just paying out. I'm saying this should be another good spark for people to have a conversation about reparations. And the thing is this: I don't care about the amount of people. You owe a debt, pay the debt goes away. That's how life works. Now, the fact that it's so many people, that's your fault because you could have paid a long time ago. America could have been paid that, but America decided not to. So now you got more people to pay. Am I supposed to say?
You're right, because this should have been squashed the last century. You get even back in the 90s where they present the HR 40 bill back in 92. I don't think most black people were at 10% at that time. But you see, they wait too long now, and it's like the population's not really slowing down per se because we might have less kids or might have kids or whatever. But as time progresses, people just don't die population wise. They either increase, stagnate, or decrease.
Well, this is the thing. The time they should have paid is when they paid slave owners. They paid slave owners reparations. So you should have paid at that point. If you're gonna pay the slave owner reparations, you could have paid the people who actually went through slavery reparations. And again, when you pay Jewish people who for something that happened in a whole other country. Now my thing is, I ain't mad at the Jewish for getting paid. I understand. To my understanding, they got paid for something that happened to them while they were in Germany. And America said, we're going to pay these people for what happened to them in Germany. When you can afford to pay a group of people for something that happened in a whole other country, you can afford to pay the people for things that happen in this country. So at the end of the day, it's plenty of times where America has shown it could pay, and they should have paid a long time ago. So at the end of the day, it's just an old debt. If you want America to look better, you pay your debt, and then you don't have to worry about the history so much. The history stings because it stings a lot more because they haven't paid. That's what I'm saying. Trump is looking at this the way he's looking at this because America hasn't paid.
And he's not going to be one that's going to orchestrate the pay. He's going to sit there trying to
I'm not trying to suggest he's going to do anything to get us paid. I'm just dealing with what they're covering as far as what he's doing. He ain't trying to get us paid. He don't have no interest in getting us paid. I'm just saying that the thing is that history stings so much because we haven't been paid. That's why that history stings so much. Why do you need to remove anything if it's a historical truth? If it happened, it happened. You don't need to remove anything. You know, he wants basically an audit of whatever they're presenting at the Smithsonian so he can feel more comfortable with whatever's being presented. Now, my thing is, I don't mind you adding something to where the white folks was helping. That's the story. That's what you can do. But to remove anything is nonsense. You don't need to remove anything. And I understand. We want a country that says we're glorious in some kind of way. We don't want our country to only be about these tragic things we did back in the day. Well, this is how America was established. It just is what it is. You know, the slavery started in 1619. We're in an America that officially began in 1776. The slavery thing was well entrenched when we got this version of America. It just is what it is. It's racism is foundational to this country. You cannot change that. There's nothing you can do to change that at this point. It is literally foundational to this country. The first day America existed the way it exists today, slavery was a part of it. The racism was there. The mistreatment of black men was there. It just is what it is. So you can't separate it. The only thing you can do is help. Now, my thing is, if you want to help with the history, you present some stuff white people were doing to help us, and get people they reparations. The FBA folks, give them reparations. That's how you could help. I'm not saying Trump is even thinking along those lines. I'm just saying I understand it stings so much because he understands. Now, this Trump is a billionaire, right? He's a money guy. Trump knows about money. He understands that stuff stings, and he understands it stings a lot more because we ain't got paid. Okay? Shout out to the Trail Bentley. He say, hell, those stimulus checks show that America can pay. Yeah, America ain't never had an ability where it couldn't pay. And that's the thing, y'all. America ain't never had an issue with paying as far as the ability to. America only has a issue with paying as far as the desire to. It's never been an issue of the ability. America could have been paid. They can pay me now today, and I ain't got to talk about it no more. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to talk about reparations if I already got them. You know, you talk about the stuff that you ain't got. Okay, When it comes to money, you talk about the money that you ain't got. All right. That's how most conversations gonna go. You know, people talk more about the money that they ain't got than the money that they do got. That's real talk. You don't hear Donald Trump telling us about money all the time because he's a billionaire. He ain't got to tell us. He got the money all. You know, and that goes for him and anybody else. When you got the money, you don't speak about the money as much anymore. The only people who really do it, I mean, some rappers will do it, but they doing that. That's how they earn money, telling you about their money. So that's just part of the process. But in the regular everyday life, they ain't telling you about their money. They already got it. Okay, they already got it. Okay. So at the end of the day, Trump is trying to beautify America. I do get that. I'm not mad at him for trying to make America look better. He's trying to make American history look better. I just think at the end of the day, you're taking a very, very wrong and negative approach. You don't audit the Smithsonian to see what can be removed. You audit it to say, hey, what can we do to add to say there was some quote unquote good white people that was there the whole time, and they were trying to help the black people do this. They were trying to help the black people do that. That's all you really can do. Now, how that's going to come out in comparison, hey, that ain't for me to be the judge of. It is what it is. It's history. So I think Trump is, you know, I ain't going to say he's moving in a bad direction to want American history to look better. I'm not going to say that's moving in a bad direction. I just think the approach is not necessarily a good approach. Because, you know, telling the lawyers to go through it like they did the colleges, that don't come out sounding well at all. Okay. And it don't sound like it's going to end up necessarily being a good result. Because results matter at the end of the day. Oh. Shout out to Boot Camp. He said, it seems like we're the only ones that want to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, that may be the case, man. That may be the case. Because, yeah, they don't mind giving out money to all kinds of folks for all kinds of reasons. That's just how it go in this country. You know, but if you FBA, there's a certain thing that goes on when you, well, I'm going to say at this point, when you're an FBA man, a lot of stuff changes that can happen to other people. They'll even give FBA women certain money in certain regards. But if you're an FBA man, they ain't really got nothing for you. And America, you know, stands 10 toes down that they ain't got nothing for FBA men. Which means what? That they are never going to go through the trouble of trying to pay FBA men. It's just never going to happen. They rather wipe the slate clean. Now, there are school books that I told y'all before. I did a show on school books where a woman, she actually pulled out one of the books that they were using in schools where they didn't even use the term slavery. They were saying that black folks were migrants that came over here. You know, they were workers. You know, they use all kinds of words that you would not associate with slavery whatsoever. So they were just telling a story of black migration, and that's all it was.
You know, logo that was Roger. I heard about that dumb shit. They try to tempt that bullshit.
Well, no. The thing is, them books is in actual schools.
Yeah, they try to say as less woke and really mean truth, which really is not true because you gonna say people are just. I mean, I remember one guy, was it the doctor, the surgeon? He mentioned that same bullshit and he died.
Hold on now, because you said that was a long time ago. You're talking about. Hear what I'm saying. The thing is, saying it was a long time ago suggests that it's something that isn't in schools. This is stuff that was put into the school system. She didn't say anything about something they were attempting to put into the school system. She showed us what was already in the school system. So my thing is, there is no long ago when it comes to that if they're using it in schools. Because to our understanding, them books ain't never been removed from the school system. This is what kids are being taught to this day. But go ahead, what's your point?
that
I just wanted to clarify that.
it makes me wonder with the conversation man had with those so-called black conservatives, how much of them, because they were Gen Zs, got glimpse of that information to talk the way they do in nonsense. The so people that label one consider black conservative if there's such a stupid thing.
I'm sorry. I couldn't hear. Repeat what you said because I couldn't hear you.
I was saying this, Roger. It makes me think those individuals that were on that circle panel with Amanda Seals that label themselves as conservatives, few that's millennial, some Gen Z. How much information that went to them about this same thing about they were just migrants and all that stuff to have this.
I mean, well, I'll deal with that another day because that ain't the subject for today. But I'm aware. I am aware of that, but I haven't seen the whole thing, so I ain't gonna really speak on it.
Okay. The reason I mention it because I'm thinking this is a mindset, bro, to whoever wants. But it goes to, again, that number one, we all know the saying that you don't let other groups of people teach you about your history. Number one, that's number one. The other thing is that whoever understand or believe that garbage, right? They say if this is so factual, you still have movies. You have things that's promoted otherwise. You're not consistent in your message at all. You get me? You're not consistent. And here's what I think. The reason I say this.
Hold on now, because my thing is Trump is telling them to go through the museums to start making some decisions on what should be put in or what should be taken out, whatever it is they're gonna do. So he's saying let's re-examine actual history. We don't know what movie gonna make yet. We you know what I'm saying? Because he done put this in the hands of other people. So my thing is I don't want to chastise him for something he ain't done yet. All we know right now is he's telling folks to go look at the stuff, and then some decisions gonna get made. Now, I'm saying this look bad in general that you're even telling people to do that. And if you want American history to look better, then you need to add something to what's already there. You shouldn't be looking to remove anything because that does make you look weak at the end of the day. And I want to read this real quick by Debonair Brother. He says this makes white men look so weak and desperate. Fixating on undermining black men in this way is so petty and self-undermining. Really going to degrade this stuff up. Desperate.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna say, what else can you do? If you're a white man, okay, you in power, you in charge of the country. you again, y'all. Trump does have a reputation. He wants to beautify everything he's associated with. So I believe that's where this is probably coming from when it comes to him. Okay, he just wants to beautify everything he's associated with. What else can you do at this particular point? Because again, you cannot go back and change history. You're stuck with the history you have. The only thing you really can do is decide how you want to present the history. Just like those school books that were mentioned that changed. Anything that referenced slaves, they just left slavery out of it. It was always another word that they used to say whatever story that they was trying to say. And they were talking about people were migrants and people were workers. And they wouldn't tell you that people weren't getting paid or anything like that. Anything associated with slavery was literally removed. So they're trying to give people a certain ideal about history, while still trying to say it's accurate at the same time. That's the best you can do with history. Because, and you got to hope enough people die off that the story won't be told anymore. That's the best you can do with history. So what can they do if Trump is telling them to go, audit the place? That's what I'm looking at it as. They're going to audit the history that's being presented in this museum. The only thing you can do is say, well, we don't want this shown and we want this other thing shown instead. So this is sad, if you ask me, that they got to go through this trouble, but isn't this what should we expect them to do? Is this not them?
Can I say something, Roger?
Go ahead.
The man said this is weak. No, the white man is displaying power like he's always been since the inception of America. If he has to make himself look good in front of not only black people but others, he will do so, and to fulfill his own self-ego. You get me? And really, let's be honest, it's always going to be a slap the face to black people, this black man. when it comes to say you owe the debt and you're not paying, but you want to make yourself look good. I look at it as a form of say to him and to others, say, I'm gonna go ahead with this, and what you gonna do about it? I ain't giving you nothing. What you gonna do about it? I am gonna go as far as say try to whitewash as much as possible your involvement in this country. I don't care how it looks, how it makes me look good. I'm going to do it because I said so. So a lot of Negroes that have a problem with this, I have no problem because it's showing the display of what they've always been in this country is, degenerates, liars, thieves. So they do things that they've always been since their inception, since they came to this land to engage in criminality and hide their hand. Simple as that. But we have somebody else up here.
All right. I was gonna say interesting take. But Shark Sims is here, so I'm gonna go ahead and give him the mic. You got it, my brother.
All right, what's up, everybody?
What's happening?
As my man G say, peace to the gods, peace to the gods. Um, I watched the clip, right, Roger? Well,
Mm-hmm.
first thing I want to say is, how do you hide something from a nigga?
Oh, they say put it in the book.
And how do you make a nigga not hear something?
And now it removed the image. So now most niggas don't read books.
And how do you make a nigga not hear?
By not speaking about it.
Huh?
By not speaking about it.
No, by getting them angry. Once a nigga mad, he can't hear shit. He's just on go.
Okay.
Peep it. I watched the clip Roger put in there, and it was very telling to me because one of my cousins, he sent me the joint yesterday, and I didn't know nothing about this going on. Then my mother sent it to me yesterday. I didn't know nothing about, and she liked to be on her. You see, Trump ain't shit, and it's like, come on. It said in the CNN thing, they put up the quote, and it had President Donald Trump on the Truth Social Tuesday. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished, peep it, how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, and nothing about the future. As a linguistic, not a professor, or you know what I mean, but as somebody who, as a rapper, as an MC, someone who takes pride in understanding words and how words are put together, I took from that these niggas don't really show how bright black people are. The average black person and white person don't understand how ill black people are. All the things that black people have contributed. You know what I'm saying? How black people have built this. And then in that same clip Roger showed, it shows Trump in his first term at the quote unquote Smithsonian Black History Museum. You know how big of a fucking slap in the face that is for the Smithsonian to make a Black History Museum? When the Smithsonian, so you're telling me the Smithsonian had access to all of this shit, but it couldn't be in the regular Smithsonian?
Good point.
Yo, they put these titles on these videos and you get mad and don't hear nothing and you don't see nothing no more. Because we go, once we like the Incredible Hulk. Once we turn green, it's a wrap. You got to send a little white lady to touch our nose or some shit. You know what I mean? For us to calm down. I know we argue all the time how we got tethers. They don't know shit because only thing that they showed them in a regular museum is that you was a slave. They don't know Eli Whitney is the reason they got a motherfucking sweater on. They don't know Benjamin Banneker mapped out the whole goddamn Washington, D.C. and made the almanac. They don't know none of this crazy stuff. Why? Because it ain't in a museum. Second reason why, because the Smithsonian didn't have this shit suppressed and figured out a way to make some money off this motherfucker and made a nigga museum. When we should have been in every museum about how great we was, besides the fact that we was just slaves. Yeah, we was just slaves, and we always say that all the time. We was just slaves, but we did even great. We did great accomplishments for America. A lot of black people just learning that black people built the White House. So when a man says they out of control and all they showing is how bad America was and how bad slavery was, and nothing about how and only about how bad the downtrodden have been, and nothing about their success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. I find that ironic that we are sitting here going back, like trying to say, oh, he's going to whitewash the museums. The museum's been whitewashed. And I close my plane right there so H. Revels can come up. My bad. I
But
apologize.
I got one more person before him. A random independent is here. Okay. Now, I'm thinking in my memory, y'all. I think he may have been here before. I think he may have been here before, and I'm gonna go ahead and get him because he actually did beat H Revels here. I just want to make sure before I give too much access, but I'm gonna bring him up and let him speak his piece, y'all. He's called a random independent, and like I said, I think he's already been here once before, at least one time before. I believe he has been, but I'm just making sure he's cool. So a random independent, you have the floor, my brother.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Yeah, I was here like a couple months back. I don't remember when exactly, but it was a minute back. I don't know who was just talking. I don't know the dude's name, but
that was Shark Sims.
Yeah, Shark Sims. Have you ever been to any of the Smithsonian museums?
No, I only been to the original Smithsonian Museum. I didn't go to the African American one that they put up in out there yet.
Okay, so do you know anything about that African American Smithsonian Museum?
Yeah, I've been told much about it. I heard it's nice. I heard it's like 3 floors of.
I think it's 6.
See, that's even worse. They got 6 floors of stuff that. Yeah,
yes. So they have 6 floors, and you were talking about how they don't, advertise any Black American achievements or anything like that. And it sounds like
not in the Black Smithsonian, in the regular Smithsonian.
Well, you said that you were reading between the words of what Trump was saying, and what you took from it was that he was saying that at this museum, that all they do is show Black people were slaves. They don't show any of the accomplishments.
No, the Smithsonian African American Museum shows all of that. My gripe is why wasn't that in the regular Smithsonian?
Okay, so are you saying that Trump wants to? You realize from what I understand anyway, his remarks were specifically about the Black Smithsonian Museum.
If he didn't say if he didn't say the African American Smithsonian African American Museum, I can only go off of what words he used. We do a lot of speculating and all of this stuff. Like if I don't say you're an idiot, and I say you're not that smart, you're just gonna be like, well, he said I'm an idiot. No, I just said you're not that smart. That don't mean you're an idiot. So we try to come whatever the word is and mix it and make it to where we can feel better about stuff. I just read a specific quote, like they do in court. They read your phone conversation out word for word, and the jury is supposed to go off of what they read word for word.
All right, we can do that then. He said the Smithsonian's, which includes the African American Smithsonian Museum. He said all they do is show that they don't show any accomplishments. So that includes, again, the African American Smithsonian Museum. By his words, we can go. All right.
Well, we know that includes everything.
We do. He doesn't.
He's been there before,
and yet he still doesn't understand.
He's been there.
This is the issue is that you say you want to go by words. You say you want to go by words, but then when we hold Trump to his words, then it's a whole bunch of goalposts moving. That's my issue with you guys. You said you want to go by words, so we're going by what Trump said. And Trump said Smithsonians. He didn't say all the Smithsonians except the African American Smithsonian Museum. He said all the Smithsonians. So hold him at his word, just like you said. Don't read in between the lines and read something that he didn't explicitly say. That's what you just said. Don't move the goalposts and act like you we don't have to do that because he's been there before. You don't have to do that. We're going off of what he said. I understand he's been there before, and we're going off of what he said. I understand that. But the point
They
is that
showed
you
him at
just
the
said
museum, and they showed the word.
that's
They
great.
showed him saying the literal words. If you play the clip again, if I don't know if Roger could pull the clip
Yeah.
up.
So he stood. So you're
trouble.
saying he stood in front of the. He said what words?
He stood in front of the Smithsonian African American Museum, and literally said it was a dope experience. He seen mad stuff, and he wants to come back because he didn't have enough time to go through all of everything that was in it.
That was his first term, correct?
That was his first term.
Yeah, and we're talking about this term now.
They literally show you saying it. Now his second
Yeah,
term.
in his first term he also negotiated the trade deals with Canada and Mexico, and now in his second term he says they're trash. So we can't trust his opinion in his first term to hold weight in the second term.
Let's stick to the evidence we have in the courtroom.
Here we go.
We've seen him standing in front of there. We're not talking about Canada and Mexico. We're talking about
the same concept. It's the same concept.
We're talking about African American Museum from the Smithsonian, and we're talking about the quote he made. Was he not standing in front of the African American?
We're not talking about first term Trump. We're talking about what he just said. And he said the Smithsonians. Did he say in his most recent statement? Did he say in his most recent statement?
Did you watch the clips that we put in the description?
Sorry. Hold on fast. My thing is, make a point, because at the end of the day, the show ain't about what Trump. I mean, I don't understand where the point is in this. I just don't. I hear the argument. I don't even get what point you're trying to make. Make a point. The point is that he's show. Yeah, my bad. Broadcast. This ain't us arguing in the living room. Let's make a point and move on. I got H Rebels here still, hasn't had a chance to speak, so let's get rolling here.
So the point being is that my bad. The point being is that, to your guys' point earlier, it's about whitewashing the history, and Shark said that it's been whitewashed or whatever. You're kind of helping him do that by saying, oh well, he's not talking about the African Smithsonian Museum. He's talking about all the other museums. He wants to add these other accomplishments into those Smithsonian museums. He never said that. I agree with you that they should be in there, and I believe that they are in several of those museums. But I just, when Trump is talking, take it as what it is, and he's basically representing that Southern white racist mentality of downplay slavery, downplay Black American accomplishments and stuff like that. It's not him saying, oh, I'm saying these things to try to get more Black accomplishments in places that they aren't represented in places that they aren't already. That's I guess the point I was trying to get to.
Well, and Trump is not a South cracker. He's a North cracker. And North crackers practice racism totally different.
Okay. With that being said, I think this is a good time for H Rebels to get in for his opening statement. You got the flow, my brother.
Yeah. Hello. Morning, and shout out to you, Roger, as the host. All the folks on the panel, folks listening. Hey, shout out to you, gentlemen. Yeah, so this is an absolute effort to actually revise history, right? And what a museum is supposed to do is you're supposed to go get like a general overview and some specifics, right? Not too many details, but enough to make you want to go, you know what? I want to research that more. I'm going to buy the books in the gift shop, and I'm going to read those books, or I'm going to, do more research online, or I'm going to actually attend some seminars or look at some more documentaries. That's what a museum is supposed to inspire you to do. So it's not going to be super detailed. So yeah, I was looking at that one video. Kendry is right. Well, the historian that he brought in is right. The overarching message of the history of enslavement, Jim Crow racism, and then everything after that is in the museum, specifically the Black American History Museum of History and Culture up there in DC. Trump is actually trying to attack that one specifically. They've already removed exhibits. They've already revised wording. They've already done some stuff. And I've been to that museum twice now. I actually was there when it opened in 2016, when President Obama did his speech and all that other stuff. I went back there some other time, and then I was just there just last year, right? So I've been there a few times, and each time it's actually gotten better. So I'm interested in what Trump is planning on doing to revise or adjust the history, because he's talking about there's no successes, there's no good stuff in there. It actually is. The museum, talks about the dark period of enslavement, Jim Crow racism, and then it talks about the good things Black people did under those periods, by the way, accomplishments and achievements despite the hardcore stomp down racism and discrimination and open terrorism against Black people. And then coming out of those eras, right, post-civil rights era, going into the 80s, 90s, 2000s, Like it literally tells an overarching story of Black Americans in the United States. So it's, you know, you got to talk about the negative stuff in order to get to the positive stuff, because, you know, that's how we got to the positive stuff in the first place. Everything didn't start off positive, right? And intertwined in that is the actual Black American culture, the food, the sports, the traditions, the practices. All of that stuff is actually in there. I know, and I, you know, if I could, I could spend like 2 weeks in that museum and actually do some real detailed research. But my whole thing is that that's the history that he's trying to change. And the other Smithsonian's, especially the one of American history, it's generalized, right? And it's also generalized at the what is that place called where they got the Constitution? The National Archives. All right, it's generally touched on in the National Archives. You don't get the details there. You get an overarching history. So those museums are fine. All right, but the one that he really shouldn't be messing with is the Black American History Museum of History and Culture, because that's where he's really trying to make the difference and change and revise history. And this is not new, by the way. This was done post-Civil War. This was done even while slavery was going on. There were people trying to change the history of slavery and trying to rewrite it and revise what it actually was and is or was not. So this is not new. This is just another era of somebody who's non-Black trying to, you know, downplay and minimize what the significance and importance and the awful and terrible history of something in the United States. So they're going to continue to do this. But all of that being said, I don't expect anybody who's not Black to actually, you know, have a detailed interest or focus on what Black American history is. Now, if you're Black, I fully expect you to do that. We have enough people who don't do it, but that would be the issue. On my side, you know, I'm not really focused on Asian culture and history. I do know enough about it to speak on it to some extent, but why would I do that when I'm not Asian? So that would be my requirement and demand on the Black population, Black men, Black women, and then you're supposed to teach your children so that way no one else who's non-Black can come up to you and tell you what your history is. I got some more to say, but I'll go ahead and land right there.
All right. And before we go any further, I do want to, excuse me, give a shout out to my main man, Landon. Landon came through on the Cash App side. He actually came through yesterday, as a matter of fact. It was later on after the show, but he was just gave a $5 Cash App for support. Appreciate you, Landon. Appreciate it. I see him in the chat right now, as a matter of fact. So shout out to you, brother. Shout out to you. Thanks for that. Appreciate it big time. And of course, y'all can always send something around the clock over here at the Roger Report Live. The Cash App is $, Roger Report. Okay, $, the Roger Report. So that's always available at any point, and I appreciate it big time. Appreciate it big time. He just said, put that in the collection plate. So thank you very much, my brother. Thank you very much. And I agree. A lot of folks ain't gonna be interested in Black history, but I will say this: Black history has a unique thing going on where I can totally see why some folks are gonna check out Black history, and sometimes people are gonna check it out for not the best reason. They're going to check out to say that, well, we didn't treat them niggas that bad. Let me go really check it out so I can have a leg to stand on when I say we didn't treat them niggas that bad. Sometimes people are going to do it for those reasons. Sometimes people are going to go try to figure out, did we really do them that bad? Because there are white people who understand that that is their people. They did it. And they want to know just how much damage was actually done for whatever their personal reasons are. And shout out to FLX. He actually sent in a Cash App another $2 as well. He says, cut the check, post-crack era, they messed up. We didn't. Now, he used the F word, but I ain't going to say that. He said they messed up, but he used the F word. They F'd up. We didn't. And you know, I do agree with you, FLX. Everything will just go along a lot smoother if they would just pay the reparations out, and this wouldn't be quite the same issue, because when you've done the repair, you can speak about a situation in a much different way. If I run into your car, we can have a certain kind of conversation before I pay for it, but if I pay for it, the conversation would be very different. So I'm just asserting that the reason this stuff stings so much is because America just ain't paid out, and they done paid other people out. They even paid the Jewish folks out for stuff that happened in Germany that had nothing to do with America. I'm not mad at the Jewish people that they got paid, but it does make me say, well, how they get paid and we didn't? That don't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, that's the fallacy and the error of their behavior is that. So here's the thing: if black people don't deserve reparations, no one does. All right, so you can't, parcel out reparations to specific groups. Actually, every group that's been aggrieved in the United States, to include groups who didn't even suffer an atrocity in the United States. All right, and then on top of that, completely ignore the group that should have been, if not first in line, second in line to receive reparations and have this thing already knocked out in 1865. We can argue whether or not the Native Americans should have got reparations before black people. We can argue about that. But you know what? They're still getting their reparations still to this day. And land returns. Black people were completely skipped over. Enslavers got reparations. You get to World War II, Japanese that were interned during the Second World War got their reparations. And then, so on and so forth. So like there's multiple examples of reparations being paid out to everybody except the freedmen descendants who were aggrieved for something that happened 100 plus, 50 plus years ago. And you can't use the excuse that it was 200 or 150 plus years ago, because we can make the same argument for the Native Americans who are now receiving money for the atrocities that their ancestors suffered from 200 plus years ago. It goes even further back. So they don't have a good argument, and the problem is that they contradict themselves. And honestly, I'm gonna tell you what Trump was, why he's messing up with this. Had he just not said a word, left the Black History Museum alone up there at the Smithsonian, this wouldn't even be so much of an issue. Because again, I've been to most of those museums, except the art one. I'm not really into art that much, but I've been to almost all of them, right? And there is a segment of Black American history that's touched where they generally overarch slavery, Jim Crow racism a bit. They talk about some achievements, but it's super detailed. And I would even argue that it's not even as detailed as it could be in the Black History Museum. The one that's actually specific to African American history, it's not even as detailed as it could be. Like it could be even more detailed, but they've got so much in there that now you get a more detailed perspective from the American History Museum, the museum of the one from the Air and Space, and all these other museums. What they're supposed to do is supposed to be one big thing that comes together to kind of touch on the general subject, and then one museum that focuses on basically the details. And that's what the Black History Museum does up there in Smithsonian. Had he not mentioned it, had he not touched it, people wouldn't even be talking about this. So it's their way to kind of say, I'm you know what it really is? I'm ashamed of my ancestors and the stuff they've done and the stuff they continue to do. How can I get rid of that? How can I take away that stigma? And you can't.
Well, maybe I might be missing something. So there's only two Smithsonians, and y'all telling me there's the black one and there's the other one in Washington D.C. There's no other Smithsonian museums.
No. So when you talk about the Smithsonian is a collection of museums. You got the Air and Space Museum, which focuses on air and space, right? The history of air and then space travel. You got the Natural History Museum, which is very excellent. You got the one that focuses on art. You got the one that focuses on Black culture. You got the Museum of the American Indian. The Smithsonian, when he talks about that, it's a collection of museums on the National Mall that if you're visiting, if you came to the United States and you only visited Washington, D.C., you could get a complete history and picture of what the United States is just from visiting those museums. If you had no idea about history of anything in the United States, that's what those museums are supposed to provide. And every one of those museums has a specialty area that they focus on. Again, air and space, natural history, American history, Black American history, Native American history. So if you get a chance to hit all of those, you just covered pretty much a lot of stuff, right? And the National Archives, by the way.
Because if they have 6 floors in the African American Museum, for the Smithsonian African American Museum, right? They have 6 floors. Okay. Mm-hmm. Why wasn't all of that stuff already put? Because that was built in 2016. Why wasn't all of that stuff in them other museums before 2016?
Because those other museums, like I said, those other museums had a specific focus. Okay, so
we had Black artists, we had Black astronauts, we had Black everything.
They are in those other museums.
This is what I'm saying, because I've been to these museums, man. I'm the museum dude right up there, right? So the thing is that in the Air and Space Museum, there is a Black section, but it focuses on air and space. They're not talking about, now they touch on the Jim Crow, but they completely gloss over slavery because, what was Black people doing in air and space during enslavement? Nothing. So it's not going to be there. But you get the idea, okay, the fact that there's a specific section for Black people in the Air and Space Museum, that says, okay, so why do they have their own section? Now you have to relate it to why they were denied opportunity to actually participate in aviation from the beginning. So you have to explain that, but you're not going to go into Jim Crow and why it is and what happened and how we got there and all that other stuff. It's going to be like, under Jim Crow era, this happened for black people, and this is what they were able. And by the way, they're talking about accomplishments under segregation for black people, and it's got its own section, and then you move on to the next section. So the Black History Museum brings it all together. So if you hit the Air and Space and you got, okay, you know what? I went to the Air and Space Museum. They had a Black History section, not detailed, but I understand a little bit of military stuff. Okay, now I'm over here at the Black History Museum. Now they got an air section where black people contributed, and it's more detailed. Where black people were in space, where black people were in the military. There's a whole military section. You know, I was all over that military section. My whole point is that's where that's the one museum he shouldn't touch. No, if you're not serious about Black American history and you sit here trying to sanitize it and whitewash it and all this other stuff, the best thing you can do is stay the hell away from that museum.
I could agree with that.
And let the specialists handle it.
So I'm 75% with you on that, Kev. So I understand where you're coming from. You saying basically leave that one alone, but yeah, you need to revise the rest of the museums, but don't touch the African Museum, the Smithsonian African American Museum.
Yeah. Now, because check this out. Is he saying anything about the Native American, the Museum of the American Indian, which, by the way, does speak to the atrocities that Native Americans suffered? They do downplay it. I've been to the museum twice now. I go there every time I go to DC. There's 3 museums I visit: the Black one, the American Indian one, and the National Archives. I go there every time I go, right? And I see because I want to see what they've added or taken away. And those museums have actually gotten better over time. And now he's trying to sit here and mess it up. He's wrong for that.
All right, now y'all, Floyd Thompson has come up, so I'm gonna go ahead and let him get the mic. Then we can chime back in. But Floyd, you got the phone, my brother. How you doing?
Woo! Wonderful Wednesday, everybody on the panel. Thanks for having me up, Roger. KFC mentioned I was going to actually, when I went to go, I had a plan on going to DC. I was going to visit the Smithsonian, and when you brought up the H Rebels, when you brought up the Native American Museum, I remember seeing some clips from Trump back in the day when he was in front of Congress talking about he might do something to that museum if they're the same depictions and pictures of some of the pictures that he showed Congress. He told them they didn't look like Native Americans because they looked white. And then he said flat out his mouth, the American Indian is the Native Americans are the American black people. Basically, that's what he's saying. So hopefully he was pointing a lot of facts out back in the day, but this seems like a whole different Trump in some cases. And as far as touching some of the inventions, I hope in the Air and Space Museum they had the girls from Hidden Figures, the black girls. With the Smithsonian's, I'm seeing it's no part of history or industry that you can really talk about that we haven't touched. We haven't had a hand in. And Roger, I think I don't know if you checked the email, but I sent you like a little clip of the 12-year-old black boy that actually was the inventor for vanilla ice cream, but his stuff got stolen and patented by someone else. So I forget the little boy's name, but I think I got it saved somewhere. So every time I eat some vanilla ice cream from here on out, I'm gonna think of that little black boy and how they stole his invention. Because he just survived, put 2 soybean plants together, the male and the female, and came up helped the process of producing vanilla that they couldn't do. But that's why you're a black boy. And enough ingenuity to do that. Won't give him credit.
I ain't know that. Thanks for putting me on.
Exactly. And shout out to that brother.
I don't like no vanilla ice cream, but shout out to young man.
Yeah, he helped my childhood.
Yep. Yeah, there's a whole long history behind vanilla ice cream, butter pecan, and why black people couldn't have vanilla ice cream. But anyway,
I'll let my plane there, guys.
I do want to say this before you go. I do want to say this. Shout out to Jerome Ismafo. Another hilarious name. Some of y'all got some hilarious names. But Jermaine Ismail says, from the Washington Post, which is a source, Trump said the Smithsonian museums are too focused on slavery and oppression. He reportedly said that they don't show enough about the greatness of our country. Now, this is the thing. If you want to talk about the greatness of America, it's hard to say that without attaching it to slavery.
Thank you.
You know,
True.
it's just
It's not.
Yeah, it's just a historical issue white people gonna have to just get over, because a lot of the greatness came due to the stuff that was going on through slavery. There were people not paying wages, so they were able to do stuff that they wouldn't have been able to do if they were paying wages. Truth be told, slavery might have actually slowed up the greatness of America. I'm gonna say that too, because ain't no telling what black people would have did on their own had they been able to come here and be free people. I personally don't really believe too much in inventions that white people did before 1865. My thing is, you stole so much stuff, I don't know what you stole and what you didn't steal. So pre-1865, I don't think you made anything.
But what I take from that is, you're not focusing on the greatness of America. Is, yeah, you just focusing on slavery, but America would not be great if it wasn't for these black people who got out of slavery and invented everything that we use right now that makes America great. And we don't show that they made all of this stuff that makes America great. We just show them as slaves.
Yeah, I mean, and even the economy, America had a lot of that American economy was impacted by slavery. So at the end of the day, how do you look at America's greatness without looking at slavery? I don't know how you do that.
Well, that's why you can't get rid of it. So, and this is how. Okay, so Roger, you're one of the expert framers, right? You're good at taking something that somebody presents to you incorrectly and go, you know what? No, you're looking at it incorrectly, and this is how you're supposed. This is the perspective you should have. That's what somebody, and I think there's only one or two black people in Trump's cabinet. Somebody should be looking at him, Mr. President, you're looking at this the wrong way. I will argue. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you the greatness of America. We can talk about this dark period. We can talk about, these two specific eras. It lasted a few hundred years and it really was terrible. Now, within the construct of those periods, we can also talk about the accomplishments of both black people and even some non-black people who did some great things under those two specific eras. And then coming out of those eras, the achievements and the forward progress of America as a whole. Like, I don't know. This is very simple to me. That the greatness is literally right there. The wonderful and the wonderment, I'll just call it that, and the beauty of the darkness and the light actually, comes out of all of that darkness. It's unfortunate. It's a terrible period. We get all of that. The issue is that if you try to erase that, now you're just trying to say, well, everything was good and great and wonderful, and everybody and the slaves, they just loved their masters. And like, come on, man. You can't do that with any other history. You can't do that with Native American history. You can't do that with, there's some dark periods of even Asians when they, initially showed up in the United States, and it got better for them. So they had their era, and then it got better for them, and it's much better today. Like, that is the progress. That is the achievement. Those are the accomplishments. That is the great thing. That's how you're supposed to explain it to him. And I don't know why those one or two black people that he got in his cabinet ain't sitting there saying, hey, look, do what you want, but do not touch the Black American History Museum, because you're going to get a whole lot of pushback and people are going to be coming at you, and you're going to get more negativity from this than actually positivity. Just leave it where it stands and let those people handle it. You're not an expert, sir. You got to have the cojones, just look him in the face and say that. And if you're in the cabinet and you ain't doing that, you're wrong. And I'm going to tell you something else too. These Democrats that say they love black people so much and supposed to be helping us, where they at? What y'all doing? Where all them black politicians are supposed to be pushing back against this? We don't need no letters or no requests. We need to be like, this is serious demands and legislation saying you will not touch this history because we ain't messing with yours because you ain't black. An Asian would not let a black person come in there and start telling them what their history is. Native Americans not come in there and let an Asian tell them what their history is because they're going to get it wrong. So that's why you got to have specialists and people from that specific racial group and culture doing the right thing and actually telling their story the way they want it told. And I'll say this real quick and pass it on to somebody else. The first time I went to DC, I was not impressed with the Museum of American History. I was not impressed. I was like, this is it? That's all they're going to do? I'm not lying. I'm telling you, because I've seen better museums overseas. When I was traveling around, I said, we did. Now, I will say this, the Smithsonian and I guess the government put more money into that museum specifically, I guess because there were some complaints, because I'm telling you, I'm the museum dude. And I'm like, they could be doing a better job. And now they have done a much better job with it. So every time I go back, they do make improvements. Matter of fact, the last time I was there, they were actually upgrading the Air and Space Museum. So they had certain areas closed off. All of that being said, if you're going to make changes, the changes are supposed to actually be better than what you had before. You're not taking stuff out, but adding to what you already have, and maybe readjusting stuff to actually, show a more accurate picture. That's not what he's doing. He's like, well, slavery, we got to figure out a way not to talk about it. No, you can't get there from here. It's impossible, Mr. President. So stop it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say the American economy has a whole lot to do with slavery in general, because America would never have become that great superpower without that free economy that they was abusing black people with. Now, my thing is this: I've said this before, and I'm gonna say it again. America has a very special relationship with FBA black men, but it's special in a negative way. They want to get everything out of us, give us credit for nothing, and act like we never did anything, so they can say whatever story they want. They want the story to be believable. So of course they're going to attack ours in a way that they're not attacking anybody else's. Trump being the president, he's doing an American thing. Now again, I ain't mad at you for trying to make your country look great. That's understandable. If I'm president, I would want America to look as great as it can too. But we got to accept the greatness of America, the foundationally comes through slavery. Because how do you do the things America did if they didn't have this whole section of slavery doing what it did?
And that's my point. You got people who don't even know how much greatness African Americans did. If they didn't, like, it's just bananas to me. Like,
okay, so Roger, you talked about the economy, right? So and I know you're not meaning to do this, but that's an understatement. So here's the deal. There's a reason that you heard the phrase when you're reading your history books, if it's even in there anymore, that you hear the phrase King Cotton, right? Cotton was a major export. It was over 50% of the export coming out of the United States, right? So from the 1600s all the way up to 1865, you had the slave economy that was built around the United States, build the infrastructure, the base infrastructure from the 1600s all the way to 1865. That's where you get the base infrastructure of the United States. That's where you get the railroads and those emerging industries going into the 1900s, right? And just in 1860 alone, 4 million enslaved people, about 500,000 were free blacks, right? So that's 4.5 million people. But that enslaved population alone, the value of that enslaved population was worth more than all the industries combined, all the banks and all the banks, the industries, and the infrastructure and all the stuff that was created in the United States. Just the slaves alone, their value was worth more than everything in the United States that had been built up to that point. Like that's how important slavery was. So when people try to do this thing, well, only 1%, it wasn't that big a deal. Cotton didn't make that much of a difference. No, when it's over 50% of your export, you include cotton, rice, indigo, and other materials, and then all the industries associated with enslavement, then yes, that is, your economy. The entire country was driven by a slave economy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the president go to sleep at night because of what happened in slavery. Because somebody built a place called the White House. You know what I'm saying? So, the effects of slavery are kind of everywhere at this point, all throughout the country. Now, my thing is, you don't see black folks trying to say, let's get rid of somebody else's history. I don't care nothing about white people showing their greatness in their history. We hear all type of stuff about white folks in their history. There's a lot of famous names out there, from a historical standpoint. So we don't care about people showing their history. You know, I don't care what group you're talking about. Genghis Khan is a very famous name. George Washington is a very famous name. Okay. Einstein is a very famous name. Ain't nobody trying to take away their accomplishments. So, you know, stop focusing on us at the end of the day. What is the big deal by letting the truth be known? You got to learn to be comfortable with the truth at some point. And that's the thing. I'm not saying you have to like a truth, but you're going to have to be comfortable with the fact that the truth is the truth at some point in time. And this whole thing about slavery, man, people say, well, it happened so long ago. Well, is it long enough where you can be comfortable with it now? Stop tripping about it. I'm going to say just go and cut a check, because I don't think Americans who don't like this type of stuff, and I'm talking about white folks who don't like the history being told, I don't think you would feel that type of way if y'all just wouldn't pay.
So here's the problem, Roger. Okay, so I told you it's not guilt, by the way, because there is no guilt associated with this, but it's embarrassment and shame. Look, how can I spin the narrative so that way all the stuff that, you know, was given to me that I didn't earn during the era of enslavement, and even later on, while I was, you know, openly discriminating against black people, how can I take credit for all of that without, one, giving any credit to black folks, and then two, without having to deal with the shame of knowing that I didn't earn it and I'm a descendant of the people who stole from other people? Like, that's the narrative they're trying to spin, and that's what they're trying to get away from. And this is the problem that they're running into, is that the residual effects of the last era of Jim Crow racism still are present today, followed by, when you push it back earlier, the residual effects of enslavement still are present today. And the reason it's present today is that the very simple thing of reparations, that matter has not been solved. And then when you double down and triple and quadruple down on discrimination for another 100+ years, that means you weren't even trying to solve the problems from slavery. So you can't do this. And remember, even during enslavement, when people you had enslavers trying to actually minimize the impact and the negativity of the stuff they were doing while they were actually enslaving people. You have slave narratives that actually prove this, first person testimony slave narratives, and not just from the slaves themselves, but they also took first person narratives and recorded testimony from enslavers. You literally had enslavers saying, well, I'm not really a bad slave owner. I mean, look what I do for these people. Like that I'm telling you, this is what was going on. So what's the best way to do that? Let's hide that history. Let's get rid of it. So 100 years from now, no one is talking about it. No one can mention it. And basically that history is gone. And not only that, let's figure out a way to kind of get rid of these people too, and kind of phase them out. So that way 200 years from now, we're not even having this discussion. And now everything, all we have to focus on is just the greatness of everything post 1985, if they even want to go back that far. Like they're not going to be able to do it. And I'm telling you, the more you mess with it, the more you actually drive people to learn about the history that you're trying to hide from them.
And my thing is, it's still legal, man. It's literally legal in America to have slaves if you've been convicted of a crime. It's still legal. If you want to get rid of the evidence of it, how about you first illegalize it? But see, you don't want to illegalize it because you want to use it from time to time. And that's the whole thing. If it's
the 13th Amendment loophole.
Why don't you just get rid of it altogether? Okay. And I do think they gave us a great clue of why this is somewhat of an issue. You know, when they were talking about the younger white people and what they're learning, and they were saying the wokeness of them and things like that, and they're not necessarily comfortable with the history that they're learning. See, I think that was a key to it. You got some younger white folks who feeling some type of way about their great-great-grandmas and great-great-granddaddies. That ain't got nothing to do with us. So to make them feel better about their ancestors, you just want to eliminate stuff that makes their ancestors look bad. That's what we gonna do. That don't make a lick of sense at the end of the day. I mean, well, it makes sense if you're doing it from a devious mindset. Sure, it makes sense. But to me, that's what the issue really is. Because a lot of stuff that's done is done, and it doesn't really have black people in mind. I know black people want to believe that we in mind, but a lot of stuff that's done, it ain't about us being in mind. So I think it was the young folk having negative reactions to history is probably where this can't really start to come about.
Yeah, that was kind of the genesis of this, and basically, there was a resurgence in the 60s and 70s with Black American history, and then because stuff was happening right then, but then you get about 20, 30, 40 years past that, and then you have people who are completely removed from it, especially these young kids coming up, and then they're going back home asking grandfather and grandma, and then a great grandpa if he's still alive, hey, so what do you know about this? Well, and they start stumbling and mumbling and bumbling, because and Jerry Jones is still alive. Jerry Jones was standing there in 1957 when the Little Rock Nine actually, tried to desegregate that high school in Arkansas, right? He was there.
So
Jerry Jones is still here.
Yeah, but Kev, you don't think it's a problem that that little white kid can just go to his great grandparents and say, why did y'all do slavery? Or would it be iller if he was able to go to his grandparents and say, why did y'all do slavery? And I didn't even know black people did all of this shit in America. So why would y'all even do that to them? Like, my thing is, what I took, like, I just go by with words. The thing said, all we do is show the black people, the downtrodden people, like they didn't do nothing. We don't show their brightness. We don't show their success, etc., etc. I agree. Nothing shows us in a good light. Even the media that we argue about all the time. We know white people doing all kinds of crimes, but they always show niggas doing all the crimes.
Yeah. So I get all that. That's a different topic, but that's media, right? So here's the thing.
Hold on. The media brought you the story.
Okay.
The media is the ones who showed you the interview and brought you all of this stuff. We know we never it's like we pick and choose when we like the media.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you, when you're talking about the media and how they depict things versus history is definite. There's primary source documents and secondary and tertiary documents that support what happened in history, right? It's documented, so we can't argue about that. Now you can talk about the interpretation. You can talk about the interpretation, but you can't argue about the facts, right? But media is something completely different. You can argue about the alternative facts and then how you analyze that and then your interpretation of it. So that's why you got to separate the two. So you can't try to combine them. But the other thing too is that, look, I don't know. I thought I was explaining it pretty well. Is that out of the darkness comes the light. Enslavement, Jim Crow, post 1960s, boom. You got a much more equitable and fair society. It's not completely equitable. It's not completely fair, right? But you can make the argument that is the overarching achievements of America as a country. But that's how you're supposed to frame it.
I don't even think it's really about that. I think it's about them young folk, man. I think some young people that came home and asked their daddy or their mama, why we rich?
So basically, we got to worry about white folks' feelings.
Some young people that came home and say, how come we live in this good neighborhood? Some kids and ask some questions about how their family is positioned economically at this particular point, and who was the people that did this? Who was the people that did that? Or we own this? Did we invent this? Is this ours? Is this ours? Is this ours? And most of them, they had to dig into some history. And and no, this ain't ours. This ain't ours. We didn't invent it. Well, how did we come to own this? And how come the average white family is worth this, and the average black family worth it? I think the young folks just start asking too many questions, and then sometimes, especially if a person is a really good person, resentment can be built. And the funny thing about people is they still people. So you still gonna spend the money. You ain't gonna necessarily give the money away once you find out that your family got some money in a corrupt way. You're still gonna keep the money, but now you just feel some type of way about the money.
You're absolutely right, Roger. You're absolutely right. There's 2 points. So you were talking about how you got some younger folks questioning how we got all of this stuff. So there is some shame and embarrassment on how that happened, right? And then especially when they have to explain it, because they want to be able to present it to their kids like, hey, we worked hard for this and now we can pass it on to you. And that's how, and then you pass it to your children and so on and so forth. Don't focus on that too much. Just understand the greatness and the goodness of all this wealth that you're inherit. That is your rightful inheritance, if you want to call it that. And then the other thing too, as it relates to that, is that let me stop because I just lost my point, but I'll come back to it.
Well, I'll just say, so there's some people saying you ain't work hard for nothing. Y'all was giving everything. So, you know, some parents trying to get their kids to talk about hard work ain't working.
Wait, so
I know what it is.
y'all think the crackers that put us in slavery and got all the riches from it are ashamed of what they done, and they not going and they ashamed to tell their children what they've done? When have you ever been ashamed to tell somebody you kicked somebody behind?
No, we're not saying that. We're saying it's problematic for some of those white folks because their kids are addressing them in a negative way. They're not appreciating that. So in response, let's try to cover a little bit more of this stuff up. That's an internal issue amongst white people. They ain't got nothing to do with us.
I disagree. Them white people is all on one of them. No, that they don't. All right, okay.
Well, let me give you an example of what Roger's talking about.
According to what they reported with this, they said, you know, some of this backlash is because of the younger white folks approaching them on what these past situations were. So the younger white people got an issue with it.
So here's the thing.
All of them, but I do believe there's a good white person out there somewhere.
Well, so both of y'all are right to some extent because so check it out. And this was the point I was going to make, Roger. You know, prior to that first point, I think we got that one out the way. But I was watching a documentary, and there was this woman, white woman, right? She did ask that question. She grew up with her grandfather, this great and wonderful man, rich, wealthy, all this other stuff. She teaching her all these great life lessons, this, that, and the third. She found out after he passed away how he got that wealth, right? And how she was able to benefit from that wealth. You know, and she said in the documentary, she said, you know, I felt really bad about it, and I sat and I cried for like a weekend thinking about that. And that's all she did. She wasn't talking about giving any of that wealth back.
Thank you.
She wasn't talking about I got to get rid of this and get this stain and fix this and give and pass this wealth on to its rightful owners. Wasn't saying any of that. She said she cried for about a weekend, and she didn't say well, I just got over it. But you can see that she wasn't talking about any kind of compensation, not retribution, but any kind of correction. She was able to get past the fact that her grandfather was not as great as who she thought he was, and then that actually relates to her father now, and then down to her. So that's the story they're going to have to pass down. And if somebody asks that question, they're either going to tell the truth or openly lie about it. So when somebody goes into the archives and sees how that one man, you know, got all of his money off the backs of everybody else, the lies, the theft, and sometimes even the murder associated with that, yeah, they're gonna cry they're gonna deal with it and feel bad for about a weekend, but they ain't giving up any of that money.
Or they're just gonna bring their kids into the fold because the kids gonna question them and gonna say, look, let me teach you how the real world works. Okay, screw them niggas. This how we getting over. This what it's gonna be. I understand you think you're not necessarily having a good feeling right now. Maybe you got a friend named Kevin who's black. But guess what? Screw him at the end of the day. And you crying about it right now, but you'll get used to it.
How many white people, if that's the case, how many white people is out there talking about black people should get reparations?
Nah, maybe like less than 30%. It's already, the polls have already been done.
But that's what I'm saying, though, Chart. They're bringing them into the fold. They saying, look, don't worry about them niggas like that. The white kid addressed them, and they tell them, look, man, it's time for you to learn how the world works for real. Don't worry about them niggas. This is what we gonna do. You may cry for a hot second. I'm not gonna say care, just say somebody cried. Well, I'm sorry, H. Rebel said somebody cried. Sure, you cried. Okay, but you're gonna get over that. We moving forward. You know what I'm saying? We ain't gonna be sitting there and have no remorse about this stuff.
If you guys remember the argument about CRT, right, which doesn't get, now they're trying to claim that some version of CRT is taught in the schools. And, I got to look more into that because really it's taught at the college level and it's an elective course, right? Mainly for history majors, political majors, and people that are going to want to be lawyers, right? All of that being said, I think they were trying to kind of like teach some version of it at the not at the elementary, but at the middle school and high school level. And that's what they were whining and crying about. And what happened was, and you're right, Roger, you had little Billy coming home. Are we bad people? I mean, do we own slaves? Did we do any of that stuff that they're talking about during Jim Crow? Was that us? And now here's the thing. This is the problem I have with this. So their argument against CRT and actually teaching accurate history was, well, it's making little Billy feel bad. So if that was the concern, what was the concern about Jerome? Well, I'll just say Percy when he was a young boy. going through this discrimination. Where was that, when our little Isaiah was going through, when he was 6 years old and out there picking cotton in the fields? Where was the concern about him? Like, this thing about the fragility of, people who never actually suffered, because they use this argument, when you didn't suffer through slavery, all this other stuff, right? I'm using my Caucasian vernacular, right? Well, you didn't suffer through slavery, you weren't there, and all this other stuff. I'm like, well, neither were your people. Those people are long gone. So why are you sitting here, talking about how you feeling about something that you swear you weren't a part of, you had no connection to directly? So if you didn't if you weren't concerned about 6-year-old Isaiah when he was out there in those cotton fields at 12, toiling in the sun in 1820, and then if you weren't concerned about little Percy Errol when when they were going through, and Pearline when they were going through hardcore stop down Jim Crow racism in the 1950s, then why should we have any concern about what little Billy is going through in 2025 as it relates to his feelings and emotions about the history of his ancestors? Like, you don't even have any concern for the people who were going through that. See, you got to go back a little bit further. Sometimes you got to take this idea of just centering yourself and somebody else's story and then making you the focal point when you ain't even the focal point. You ain't even important in the story. But certain groups and certain people have a knack for doing that. But anyway, I'll go ahead and land right there.
Well, I look at it from the aspect of, like you said, little Billy's going back and saying, well, did we do this? And did we have slaves? It's the same thing for little Tyrone that's in his class. He's going back and he's like, yo, well, was I a slave? Was we slaves? And I feel like they don't represent us. They don't represent the greatness of America. The only place that shows all of that stuff is in the African American Museum of from the Smithsonian. And if the Smithsonian had all of this stuff, why wasn't it in these museums before 2016? Why wasn't it in every museum to the extent that it is in that museum? I got people that went to that museum and now they come back black and proud. And I'm sitting there like, wait, you just understanding how great you are?
Yeah, that's why that's why Trump ain't supposed to be touching it. That's the one museum he shouldn't touch.
And that's why I was saying the clip that Roger showed for the references. They literally showed him in front of that museum when he was in his first term saying, yo, yeah, this is great. This is I got to come back and check out the rest of it because I didn't even get a chance to see it all. And now in 2025, he's saying, yo, all we do is show them as slaves. We don't show them as all the good stuff that they actually did, the brightness and the brilliance, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm coming from the angle of, he's saying, yo, this shit got to be put everywhere.
Well, that's not what he's doing, though. No, he's taking it out. He's sanitizing and whitewashing. That's what he's doing. Well, he's trying to figure out a way to sanitize and whitewash and actually try to do as much as he can to erase the negative parts of it. You don't get to the positive, unless you come through the negative, right?
But Kev, it's no erasing that. It's no way you're going to erase it.
And in a lot of ways, he's actually making it worse. He's actually making it worse by bringing negative attention to it and then trying to. But again, this is you got to understand something. This is par for the course, right? This is what they do. The lost cause, the Confederates spent immediately after the end of the Civil War in 1865. The Confederates literally founded organizations to distort the real cause of the Civil War. All right, and then if you hear what again. What's going on? Oh, somebody needs to mute up.
Yo, mute up, Floyd Tom.
Somebody's gonna mute up. Yeah, you immediately hear white people, and it's mostly white people who do this, and basically almost even black people do it to some extent because this is what we've been taught. A war was fought to free the slave. Wrong. Absolutely not. In short, the Civil War was this. Basically, the North was fighting to keep the country together, to preserve the Union. The South was fighting to keep black people enslaved. The only people who were fighting to actually free themselves were black men, to free black men, women, and children. That's it. It wasn't even, when the Civil War kicked off in 1861, freeing the slaves wasn't even a topic of discussion. Abraham Lincoln didn't want no parts of that. He wouldn't even want to bring it up. It wasn't even on the table. It wasn't until about 18 to 24 months into the war that discussion was even being had. And the only reason it was even brought up is that the South was beating the brakes off the North and they needed help. And when black men got on the roster, that's when they won the war. Boom. That's it. That's the history.
All right, we're gonna pause right there. I got Truth Teller and Inspired Truth both coming up. I'm gonna give Truth Teller the floor first because Truth Teller been have time issues a lot of the times now. So because of his time issues, he getting time privilege. So Truth, you got it, brother.
Thank you, sir. I've graduated from the late nigga to the timely on time nigga. I feel like I have matured.
You definitely graduate. You definitely graduate.
I was gonna say, the whole bigger, what Trump trying to do and blah blah blah. I live in Florida. They already made that move down here. I don't know if y'all know that or not. They got all that out the history books. They didn't made that move here. We got some African American libraries, so they can't touch that, but they already touched the Department of Education in Florida. But prior to all of this, I don't know if y'all noticed or not, and most black people don't know, the slavery that we know ain't the real slavery. It was far worse.
Yeah.
Far worse. Babies being tossed to alligators, far worse.
Gator babies.
Like far, far, far worse. You could think of all the horrible things people have done in the past, like they did in Transylvania with the real Dracula putting people's head on pikes and hanging them up and all of that good stuff. That happened here. They just don't share that. And I'm very surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. I know why. But do y'all notice how everybody's ignorant on that part of the history? When you be talking to people, they'll tell you everything about the history. People back in the day used to do this, and used to do that, and used to do this. And then when you say, well, what about that slavery part? All of a sudden, everybody's ignorant. Nobody knows what happened, especially white folk. Ain't that kind of weird? So, I think Trump is just trying to keep the attention off of, certain things, and he's trying to make sure that his audience is directed to a certain direction, because them folks are the people that actually want to go in the direction he doesn't want them to go. So he's going to keep feeding. More stuff like this is going to pop up. He's going to keep feeding them stuff as time goes by, so they can just keep being misdirected, because basically, they slow. Well, what can I say? And they're going to keep flowing with it. It's a great thing. He's working hard, blah, blah, blah. He's not going to be able to close the museum. He's not going to be able to change anything in the museum. That's just, even if he does a review and say, hey, the most he can do is say the museum is lying to people. That's what it's going to amount to. And it'll be part of, whatever his verbal stuff is going to be. The museum is lying to people. Certain things, he's not even going to say it. He's going to say certain things didn't really happen. And, the white supremacist is going to take that and say, yeah, you guys are lying about getting hung. Stuff like that. That's what's going to happen. They just going to start making up stuff and throwing stuff, the baby in the bathwater all in, and just making it seem like everybody's crazy and nobody knows history.
You're a denier, a slavery denier.
Okay. Let me get Truth broadcasting first. Matter of fact, now that I think about it, Truth, you be having some time issues too, don't you? I mean, Inspired Truth broadcast.
Yeah, I do. It's true.
All right. Well, anytime you come up, I'm gonna try to get you in right away. Anytime you come up too, then. So, but go ahead, my brother.
I'll be having time
appreciate it
too.
So first off, shout out to you, Raj, for bringing up this topic. Also, salute to all the folks that's in the chat. I hope I'm coming in loud and clear. I want to try to make sure that I articulate this as best as I can, because there's a lot to dive in over here on this particular topic. The main thing that I want to push more than anything else is pushing back on that ridiculous, absurd idea that, oh, well, that white people always put up that, oh, I didn't own any slaves. Oh, that was before I was even born. Oh, that was a long time ago. So, listen, America is an entity, like a whole entire entity. America has debts. Those debts go back to before I was born, before you were born, before any of us were born. And guess what? America pays its debts. You know when America doesn't pay its debts? It doesn't pay its debts to Black Americans because America still sees us slaves. We're still that until they pay us. They are expressing what we are to them with their actions. That's what we really are. Like, and and the thing about that they brought up the term woke when they said woke. That's our word too, by the way. That goes back to the Jim Crow era. It was talking about how, hey, you know what? We're not officially slaves. We're not technically slaves anymore. But either way, these systems and these structures and these things that they put in place still have us in slave status. Stay woke, stay aware to that. And now we're like, and now you're saying, okay, we gotta get rid of this whole woke thing. We think that this most Smithsonian is too woke. That's another slap in the face back to us. I really want people to kind of pay attention to just those two main things. I have some other stuff about that, but it's just amazing and appalling lies, and we have to push back on the lies and bring back the truth. And they can at any given time. Like if they take away the things like the slave narratives and the interviews and the things of that nature that actually show what was going down, then they'll just replace what actually occurred in reality with their fantasy of, oh, well, slaves were actually family members. Slaves were treated so humanely. They were a part of the family. They'll just replace it with their lost cause rhetoric.
Yeah, I'm gonna say well said, and real talk. I mean, when it comes down to it, if you want progress, just end slavery altogether. Right now, it's still legal in America. You cannot tell me that I should be upset about something that's still legal. Okay. So any white person telling me that that was all them years ago, it's legal now. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they just reframed the institution of enslavement. But yeah, it's still illegal.
Something else that we have to keep in mind, right? Not saying that you're wrong about what you just said, but we need to understand in order to do that what you would have to do. Just so y'all know, the same Constitution that enslaved us, the same Constitution we have right now, just with a couple of amendments.
Well, 27 amendments, but yeah.
They didn't. That's why I said a couple. I was being.
Okay, I got you.
It's 27. But it's the same Constitution. They didn't rewrite it. They said, you know what, man? Let's rewrite this and take all this negative black slavery, not human stuff out. No, we can't do that. We like all the stuff that's in here. We just go add a few bits and pieces on top of it and keep the good stuff. And the good stuff happens to be with second-class citizens. So just keep that in mind, that if the base of the law has a flaw in it, writing an amendment to that law will never completely correct it. You basically have to scrap it and rewrite the law.
You know what? That's actually a good point. That's a good point. Well, that's how you get the Constitution in the first place. Before the Constitution were the Articles of Confederation, right? Nobody really knows too much about that, but because the Articles of Confederation wasn't working out, they said, look, we got to unify on the one federal document, and this is going to be the document that governs everybody. Okay, so and then they spent weeks, or I don't even think weeks, months, actually going back and forth, even to the point of actually fighting in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. When they were drafting the Constitution about the issue of slavery, right?
Yep.
And then on top of that, taking stuff out, putting stuff in, and all the other stuff, and trying to figure out a way to word it so that way there would be no direct reference to enslavement. If you read the Constitution, there's three indirect references to enslavement. It's the 3/5 Compromise, it's the 1808 Compromise, right? And it's the other one where there's another one. Something about titleable or taxable persons or something like that. But there's three indirect references, and what they're talking about is black people, which is the enslaved population, and Indians. Indians is actually in the Constitution. They haven't changed that word. So it's still there to this day. Indians not taxed is the phrase, because they didn't include Indians or Native Americans as citizens either. They didn't get their citizenship until going into the Second World War. All of that being said, that's kind of how they did that. But you're right. You got to scrap the whole thing and start over and write a constitution that actually serves everybody and includes everybody, especially based on the makeup. And it's interesting because in other countries, they've actually done that. They've actually amended their constitution to the extent that they have 17 revisions of it.
All right.
In other countries, they do that.
Now I do want to address something in the chat. Shout out to Blexit the Communita. Now Blexit, he a little special sometimes, y'all, based on what I've seen, because I've seen him around. Okay. He says this is America. The F is a goddamn America spelled with the 3 K's. He said America owes nan nigga nothing. Do y'all work? WTF. Now I'm gonna say, now Blexit, see, I be trying to think Blexit be a smart person because he'll say something here and there, and then he'll say something really stupid. Now you say Americans don't owe nan nigga nothing. Well, Blexit, I want my daddy's records, man. They owe us. Now the thing, this is the thing. You have to make a decision about what kind of man you are. There are some men you can take stuff from and they ain't gonna do nothing, even though you ain't necessarily got a gun to their head, you don't have a system against them or whatever the case is. They ain't gonna do nothing, even though you took from them. Those men are usually referred to as cowards. Okay? Now the thing is, America did take something from our ancestors, and because you pay even up to your ancestors in this country, America does owe us something. Now, you can say that they don't owe you nothing. Now, either you're not from the lineage, and that would be totally fine, or you are from the lineage where they do owe you, and you're just a coward. Now, what you do with that is on you. I'm not calling you a coward. I'm just stating what facts are. If you don't go after what's owed to you, usually it's because you're a coward. Okay?
No.
That I give a special provision. There's some people who gonna say, well, I'm gonna let God take care of it because they doing something with him. But if that ain't your reasoning, usually it's just somebody's a coward. And I know men don't like to be called cowards, and I'm not saying Blexit is technically a coward. I don't know his story. But if you're going to insist that somebody don't owe me something when you know good and well they owe me something, you're trying to have coward behavior, but not have the word coward attached to you because you don't want people to know the debt is real. But the debt's still real, whether you fool other people or not. The debt ain't changed status because you fooled somebody, which means if you don't go after your debt, you are operating as a coward. Now, all of us can be better men. So I'm just saying this is something for everybody to think about. But go ahead, Truth Teller. You was finna say something?
Yeah, hold on a second. What I was gonna say is, people kind of say that, not knowing history. Actually, the United States does owe us. And you know who said so? The United States. That's how you know they owe us. They already acknowledged it. It's like when you get a credit card and you paid a bill a couple of months and you stop paying. The fact that you paid the bill those couple of months is your acknowledgement that you owe this debt that you didn't pay. So the United States of America made a deal. We were supposed to get 40 acres and a mule. Presidents changed office and the government reneged on the promise. So guess what that means? There's legal precedence to say it's owed. Not only that, there's also precedence where they paid other people their reparations. The slave owners, the Japanese, small hat people, the Native Americans. A lot of people got paid reparations. They even said we were supposed to get paid reparations, but for some strange reason, they pulled back on ours. I wonder why.
Yeah.
So y'all folks go ahead with that. They don't owe us nothing. Good luck.
No. Sometimes we do that to protect our own ego. I don't want to assume. I don't want to view myself as a coward, so I'm just gonna say they don't owe me. And I'm not saying that to point. I'm not saying this to like embarrass Blexit, because technically I don't even know he's black. Technically, I don't even know that. But the thing is, y'all, real is real. I'm just saying you got to rethink about some. You got to rethink some of the stuff that you throwing out there. America does owe you. You know they owe you if you come from that lineage. America knows they owe you if you come from that lineage. So if you do something in your head to block the fact that they owe you, you're just operating as a coward in that moment. Doesn't mean you're a coward about everything, but you are operating as a coward in that moment. And what I'm saying is not to embarrass somebody or talk down to somebody. I'm saying simply try to be a better man and not operate as a coward. If somebody owe you, they owe you. Let them pay their debt, and don't just, now if you just want to let them off the hook for the debt they owe you, that's one thing. But if you're gonna tell somebody else that America don't owe you and they know America owes them, I mean that's coward behavior. You can forgive your debt if you want to personally. That's on you. That's a man. You got a right to forgive a debt. If somebody owes me money, I have a right to forgive that debt if I want to. But don't you get in my business talking about somebody else don't owe me nothing because you forgave them the debt they owed you. That ain't got nothing to do with me. Just is what it is. That has nothing to do with me. But Champ Car for Life is here, y'all. So I'm gonna give him the mic. Champ, you got it, brother.
Hey, happy Thursday. I hope you all having a good Thursday and everything. Raj, the reason why this is happening is number one, Trump and many of his people who have been writing all this type of stuff, they're ashamed of their history. They're ashamed of what they did to black people here in America and indigenous people here in the United States as well. So that's number one. Number two, they want to say something positive to white people. They're trying to find a way to make people feel that white people did something good and everything else, which they never did. It's all about build and destroy, as you always comment, and everything else. And finally, in the next 20 years, their population, will go down almost to below 4% as this nation, as the global world population, becomes more diverse. Look what's happening in Europe, for example. You see a whole bunch of these people from Africa coming in and everything else, and you're seeing a different. You're seeing people, who come from biracial, mixed race children and everything else, and so what's going to happen is that it won't be virtually a white population anymore. And so what he's trying to do in his last ditch to save white supremacy is trying to have a system similar to that under South African white rule, where they created these caste systems and everything else, and then try to create strife between, colored, different tribes and everything else, and that's what's going on right now here in America between, you have Latinos and black folks, in California and everything else, and Latinos and black folks in South Florida and everything else, etc. East Indians, they got the mindset of white supremacists and everything else, how they've been denigrating black folks. And so in the last ditch effort, they're going to try to keep this tribal beef going on and everything while maintaining white supremacy and everything else, and try to do it and try to dumb down black history by, trying to make changes at the Smithsonian and everything else. So that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanna address something real quick. All right, shout out to Muggles RA. You say so all that free stuff black women got from the government counts as what? You can count it as a lot of stuff, but you can't count it as reparations. Because what free stuff did black women get that wasn't given to white women? And you talking about women. I'm not a woman. So I want my reparations. So telling me about what somebody else got ain't got nothing to do with my debt. Now, Muggles, this is the thing. Because I don't know who you are. Just my first time seeing you. You could be a black person too. Let's not be stupid in public, y'all. Let's just not be stupid in public. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm saying this from a general context for everybody, y'all. Let's not be stupid in public. Don't tell me nothing about my debt while you explain to me about what somebody else got. What does what somebody else got to do with my debt? Nothing. If you purchase a home and I pay my mortgage, what the heck that got to do with you and your home?
Yeah. Don't listen. Don't that. I want to say this to this person. Don't be dumb. Don't be like those people from
Champ. I'm not letting people on the panel talk. Say stuff to people out there in the chat.
I know, but that just sounds.
I understand, but everybody's a guest at the Roger Report Live, so I'm not gonna have people attacking. If I want to address something, I'm gonna address it myself, and I ain't gonna let the panel jump on the person. Okay. So I get where you coming from. I appreciate the spirit, but I'm not gonna let people pile on to. I mean, he's still a guest here anyway. The thing is, I just want my guests to think a little different and act a little better, and not say stuff that would be considered dumb. Because if you saw somebody else say the same thing, you call them dumb. Muggles, I do believe that about you. I believe if you saw somebody else say what you said in a different context, you say they stupid, and stupidity is a choice. So don't purposely be stupid in my chat is all I'm basically asking you to do. Okay? I don't think that's too much.
Yeah, what we deal with, what we experience here is something akin to an economic war. And some of these phrases, some of these ideas, some of these rhetorical devices are just kind of like tools in that economic war. We've seen kind of that some wars can last a really long time. We've seen Afghanistan last a really long time. And you know why? In Vietnam, we saw Vietnam last a long time. And
About 20 years,
yeah, and you know why the people there actually won those? Because they had more will. They stayed there. They lived there. They never stopped. Whoever doesn't stop wins the war.
Yeah, absolutely. Those wars are basically, that was the first modern or 20th century war that America lost, and we've been carrying that shame for forever, right? Because remember, they came out of the first one, the second one, even Korea and all that other stuff. We've been winning, and they're like, what the hell happened? Well, it's because again, the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese specifically, actually had more will, and they were willing to go to the last man. And when you win a war, is about logistics, attrition, and putting people on the ground and being able to take ground. And if you can't do that, and you don't have the will to do that, and somebody else who's basically has a smaller army, even with less weapons, can do that, and they're willing to outfight you and outwill you, they're going to beat you every single time. Every single time. That's how it's going to go. You guys said something earlier.
Well, before you say it, let me say this real. Hold your thought. This is gonna be quick. Shout out to the real Dom. I'm gonna stick my foot up your butt, Trump. He said, "I'm still blocked." Look, I know you still blocked. I got an issue going on with my situation. As soon as I can clear that situation, I can get into where I need to get into to unblock you. I know you're still blocked. I am definitely working on it. I got to get something cleared up on my end. It has nothing to do with you, but I can't get to where I need to unblock you without getting this solved. So my apologies for the hold up, but I'm getting it done as quick as I can. All right, go ahead. Go ahead with your thought.
Okay, so you guys had I got 2 points. One was about reparations. I don't want to make this discussion about reparations, but since you guys mentioned it, the latest group to get reparations are Mexicans. Based on the nuclear testing that was done in 1945, you guys know the 2 bombs get dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? But there were people out in that area, primarily Mexican, that were affected. That just happened, literally just 2 months ago. They were awarded. They're not the people who were affected directly. Their descendants, as Dr. Umar would say, are being rewarded, rewarded or compensated with reparations, cash payments. That's what they're getting. They're getting money. I don't know how much, and all this other stuff. So that's another list of people we can add to the group that are receiving reparations. And then the other thing too is that one dude popped up and said, America don't owe us something about don't owe us nothing. Okay, we already talked about reparations. I'm not going to get into that. But the other thing too is, as a United States citizen, America owes me the full rights, benefits, and privileges and protections as a United States citizen. I want all of that. I want all that shit. whatever everybody else is supposed to get and what they are getting, I want that exact same protection, rights, benefits, and privileges because I'm a full citizen too. All right, I'm paying taxes, I'm doing all the right things, I'm law-abiding, hard-working, responsible, all the stuff that, and I'm patriotic, this, that, and the third. And if you're doing all of that stuff, damn it, I want all of that stuff. So yeah, I am owed that shit. I'm owed that.
Absolutely.
And I think I'm cutting you a deal because I'm gonna also allow you to only pay me the average for 40 acres and a mule in my state. I think I'm cutting y'all the deal. You know what I'm saying?
That's a spectacular deal because
you know what I'm saying?
interest.
I'm not even saying you gotta, go back to 100 years. Man, just give me the average price of 40 acres and a mule in my state. And I think any Black American that is FBA or that's amongst the lineage probably would take that deal.
Nope, not me. Not me.
Well,
I got to move back to New York first.
Most of us, I think most of us would take that deal. I'll say that.
I got to move back to New York though first, Roger, before I take that deal. I'll move back to New York. I'll take that deal.
The reason I bring that up is because people do this thing where they go, America don't owe you nothing, right? As if somehow we're not citizens. Like I'm telling you, you have people who have the idea that we are third and fourth class citizens in our own country, that our ancestors actually built the infrastructure, right? The base infrastructure and generated billions in wealth for the country. They're like, well, we don't really, y'all not really entitled to that. Not only you're not entitled to the protection, the rights, the benefits, the privileges, all of that shit.
That's
people who still believe that to this day, and that's how they behave.
Yeah, that's because they still see us as slaves. Like, you don't pay your debts to slaves. That's what that's all about.
Well, the slaves gonna check that. The descendants gonna check all that.
I gotta get Trump ain't issuing. Trump ain't issuing joined us. So Trump ain't issuing. You got the floor.
Salute to you, Roger. Shout out to the panel. Kevin C, you're about to be really upset, so you might want to brace yourself.
I'll let you go, then I will respond.
Well, I'm just letting you know ahead of time, but I do respect you. Thank you for your service and all that jazz. First, I want to say this: Trump is that nigga you just can't take nowhere, right? You can't take him nowhere. You can't give him nothing, man. Because man, if you give him an inch, he gonna take 80 miles. So the worst thing America could have done was give this man a second crack at the office. Because he really is that nigga you just can't do nothing with, man. He is really that, you gotta leave that man to his own devices. Now, with all that being said, he said some real shit. Woke is broke, and I want America to be the hottest thing on the planet. Now, from a white person's point of view, I understand that. Because y'all got my white boys who are the future of America up here with fingernail painting. You got them sympathetic to black people, right? And I grew up in the 1960s. That is not my America, folks. When white boys are up here talking about the consideration and white privilege. When white boys are up here talking about, oh, I need to manage my white privilege, you best believe Trump. You best believe he's going to have a problem with that. And then on top of that, you over here telling white boys they got a period. They're not getting into schools anymore. Things like that. White people are in crisis. So from Trump's point of view, okay, we got to fix this. And the first thing I have to fix is y'all need to stop feeling guilty for things, white people. Now, as the FBA, Trump, he is out of pocket. He is way out of pocket. But we need to have our own stuff. And I know we do have some black-owned museums throughout the country. There's a bunch in Philly. I know there's some in DC as well. But we need to have our own stuff. And we need to stop talking and we need to retaliate. Right? So when you're going to say, okay, I'm going to send my lawyers to do an audit of the Smithsonian, well, guess what? We're going to do an audit on this company, and we ain't going to invest in that anymore. Right? We're going to do different things to retaliate for this type of behavior, because you don't go to the ADL with this kind of stuff. You don't talk about the small hats in any type of way, right? You leave them alone. And we need to get to the point where you know what? It's just better to leave these niggas alone. Like, we ain't even gonna talk about it. Right? Because Shark Sim says something that was on the money, and nobody really dove deep into that. White people are not scared of us anymore. They're not physically scared of us anymore, and they're not cancel culture afraid of us anymore. Because you can even see on the panel, those two white people, they say, "Oh, respectfully," and this, that, and other, right? And then the black people be like, "Oh, well, respectfully, let me reply." Why do I need to say respectfully to a white person talking about my shit? If anything, I'm going to say disrespectfully, shut up, ho. Right? Disrespectfully, why are you even here? Right? I mean, like, why are even white people here on this matter? Like, that always confused me. But I'm going to leave it there. So,
Okay.
anyway, like I said, bottom line, Trump is just one of those niggas you just can't give him shit. But on the other hand, you need to do better.
Bravo.
Real quick,
Don't turn.
real quick, y'all. Real quick. I got to step away for a second. So I'm gonna leave H Rebels in charge of the panel, and y'all can go from there. Okay. And if y'all end before I get back, that's fine. If not, then I'll end it when I get back. Okay. Go ahead, H Rebels. You have control of the panel, sir. You good with that?
I have the con, sir. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate you.
Got you covered.
All right. Go ahead.
All right, you want me to go ahead, or you want to do something real
Yeah,
quick?
go ahead. Who was that person that was just kind of talking up? Go ahead and you can respond.
All right, so basically, I agree with a lot of that. Like, don't turn the other cheek. Do your opposition research and actually fight back. And that whole idea of, oh, we just need to educate them more. Oh, they don't understand. They understand. They perfectly understand.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, educate these nuts. And disrespectfully, you need to shut up. This nigga's talking right now. And on top of that, you see how quick the black woman checked that black man? But when that white woman was talking, she was like, stutter on these nuts, ho, both of y'all.
Yeah, she did interrupt him a lot, and he patiently waited. I noticed that. Yeah, Mr. Bakar, I saw that too. Yeah. So now here's where I disagree with you. What's your name today? I gotta look you up.
Trump ain't-ish.
Okay, Mr. Trump ain't. Okay, yeah, I got you, Mr. Trump ain't-ish. Yeah, so I agree with you. Trump is out of control. We have a hard time taking him anywhere, to include outside of the country. I'm actually concerned he's over there, talking to Zelensky and possibly, later on talking to Putin. All of that being said, I would agree with you on that. Now, here's the thing. They may not be necessarily overly concerned about cancel culture, but there is some concern about it among white people, right? And they are afraid. They're afraid physically, right? Because, well, I mean, so if you weren't afraid, then you wouldn't need all these systems. You wouldn't need the pushback. Then you would just do what you're gonna do. That's what that DC takeover is about. Like, okay, so I got to exert my power. I got to show these Negroes who's really in control, right? I got to get them out in the street so that way I can actually stomp down on them even more. So even that's not working. So there's some level of fear there. Now it may not be open, blatant. I'm not scared of these Negroes. No, there's the reason you do stuff like that is that there's some fear in there somewhere. So they're still afraid. They've always been afraid. Because the fear is the response to what it is they're doing. There was fear all throughout, Jim Crow. There was fear all throughout enslavement, right? That's what those rebellions were about. So there's still even fear to this day, all right? And there's fear that their numbers and their power possibly might be diminishing. So they're trying to. You're right. They're trying to establish that whole. Somebody said it earlier. How can I control this population while my numbers are dwindling. So that's part of the fear, and that's why they're stepping up and doing some of the other stuff that they're doing. And then there was something else you said. I already forgot it, but if you remind me, or if I remember it, I'll go ahead and go to it. But yeah, you're pretty good on most of that. Just a little slight disagreement, but for the most part, I'm not going to go too hard with you.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, have your own stuff. We need to stop begging people, white people, for stuff. Just have your own.
Okay, so see, that's just it. See, okay, so this is where I'm going to disagree with you. Black people are not begging. See, that's just not it. Man, we were never asking white people for anything. Matter of fact, what black people were saying, what black people were saying was, look, we want self-determination, our own independence, leave us the hell alone and stay out of our business. All right? Y'all can't seem to do that. Y'all, they have not been able to do that. The United States government has not been able to do that. And they don't want to do that. Right?
When we're on the panel talking to white people, trying to make them understand how we feel, that is begging. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I would agree with you on that. There's no point in trying to educate. Yeah, there might have been a time for trying to educate, but we're way past that. They need to figure that stuff out for themselves. So you're right. We don't owe them anything, and we definitely don't owe them in respect as far as trying to teach them something. And people, believe it or not, there are people that are still doing it. There's discussions going on YouTube right now, or somewhere on a live stream on TikTok, where some white person has basically colonized the whole discussion.
Yeah. Honestly, those people who try to teach them, those are ops as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because because for you to think, basically, you're focused on their change.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only reason why you would do it, because you want them to change. I don't care if they change or not, and I keep stressing this to people in my own personal life. Whether they change or not is irrelevant to me. I am going to function like I know they exist, and what their actions are, have been, and will be. That's the only thing I'm responsible for. I don't care if they understand. I don't care if they really know. They don't really know. They kind of know. They hiding it. All that's irrelevant to me. Because at this point in time, they're acting as a unit with this so-called ignorance. So that's why we don't want to say all, but goddamn it, they're doing a pretty good job all together in this one area. So I'm just gonna say.
And I know why they do that too, because like at the end of the day, like the bigger, broader economy here in the United States is still kind of like run through them. And until we can kind of like get out there into the global market and get some sort of way diversified to where we don't have a boot on our necks, then there's gonna be people that are gonna just kind of like raccoon it up.
Yeah. Well, so Roger talked about this a little bit. There are some black people that are operating out of cowardice, right? And what is it? White appeasement, right? And you can't do that, because you're only helping them further degrade your progress. And the other thing too, one of the reasons they again, part of their concern is, you guys were talking about the economy. So understand that white people are 60% of the United States population, right? As it stands right now, they're 60%. Their numbers are dwindling, but they're 60% right now. They own almost 90% of the wealth in the United States. Black people are 13 to 14% of the population, or less than 2% of the wealth. See, when you have a 13% size population, at a minimum, we should own at least 10% of the wealth. That way we could actually, so what you're talking about, Trump, Trump ain't ish. What you're talking about is that's what we could actually do. That we could actually have our own infrastructure, businesses, banks, institutions, schools, and all the other stuff, right? But you can't do that with about 2% of the wealth for a 14% size population. You got to, at a minimum, you got to have 10%. All right, that way you can employ your own folks, and that whole thing. I remember watching a documentary where there was a white woman talking about basically how. But no, there was a white man. He said, "Yeah, when they get their own stuff, we'll give them respect." And I'm like, "Dude, we had our own stuff. Literally in the middle of an era where black people literally had their own stuff, they were actively. United States government was actually breaking it down." While he's talking about, so you had white people at this time, literally in the 60s, talking about. I'm looking at these old documentaries. That's kind of one of my little hobbies on the side. I find this random stuff. There's a guy, he does a channel. And he pulls up random stuff like that, especially from the 50s and 60s and earlier, especially when he can find it, from the 1900s to around that time frame. And I'm telling you, they did everything they could to take that stuff away, while they're sitting here talking about, well, when they get their own stuff, we'll give them more respect. Like, that's what black people have been doing. So it's not about, we want stuff from you. What you need to do is get out the way. Move, get out the way. It's all about black self-determination, black independence, black owned, black run, black directed, all black everything with no interference from anybody. When you do that, then because it sounds like I see your point. It sounds like, oh, well, you guys are just begging this, that, and the third. No, there's never any begging. It's like you guys can't get out of the way. Do that, and then we'll see. Then
No. I'm not.
we gotta pass or fail on our own.
I'm not discrediting the terrorism that the American government exudes on black people, right? According to the the UN, right? They say that black Americans experience terrorism. I'm not talking about that, right? Because that's a whole nother thing. But what I am talking about was when we're begging is like the education of Miss Anne or the education of Jasper, the Friendly Ghost.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, no.
No. And then but also in a time of we still have, no matter how many times they do blow it up, we still have to build it back.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that. I can agree with you on that. Now we can talk about the internal issues amongst ourselves as to why that is happening to some extent and why it's not happening as a collective. That's an issue that we can deal with. Still, I would say you got to get out of the way. All of that being said, but you got a point there. There's no point in trying to educate them because, matter of fact, part of the American education system is to make sure you're not fully educated in certain areas of history or politics or economics or anything to that effect. That way, if you don't have enough information to actually challenge it, you just, that's just how it is, I don't really know. Well, no, if you find out on your own, and especially from your own people, then you're in a better position to challenge it when something goes up against you. But yeah, it's not our job to educate them, or especially not anybody who's not part of the group. I would agree with you on that. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay, somebody else got some comments?
I have a different direction. We can publicly say they need to get out of our way, but our plans need to be that they're going to be in our way. What happens is we all our plans relies on the fact that they don't mess things up for us. And I think that's the fatal flaw in anything that we've ever tried to do as a group. Because that's a fantasy. That doesn't exist. It's not reality. They're going to be in our way. They're going to do whatever they can to be in our way. And because we think that way, we don't exert all the legal ramifications we can when they do get in our way. We're not prepared. So those ladies wanted to open up the female bank, the credit union.
Yeah.
Some white dude took in the court and killed it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But if they come up with a community of only white folk, you think a black person is going to take him to court to sue him when they try to establish that? No, everybody's just going to be like, oh well, let them do what they do.
Yeah, well, we don't want to be around them enough to even have any interest in trying to go against them on that.
That's our problem.
Yeah,
well,
so and I would agree with you on that. Black people need to operate in a way that there's going to be chaos agents and provocateurs and interference, not just from the outside, but from the inside too, right?
Yeah.
So we need to operate, and you gotta know that it's coming, and when the second you see it, shut it down. Like, oh, chaos agent right here.
Hell, even if you're not sure of it, you still shut it down. Hey, I'm sorry, but it just is what it is.
Yeah, people who know will absolutely understand if you point them and go, hey, you're a chaos agent. I'm getting you up out of here right now. You out to paint. Be like, well, no, it's not me. It's not me. No. Well, hey, until I figure this out, you don't come in these meetings. You're not privy to any information. You're out of here. But right now, you got to go. And then, especially in outsiders, it's very easy. Just keep them out from the beginning.
Just give me a call. That's all y'all need to do. Just give me a call. I'll be right there. I'll take care of it.
But yeah, we do need to, because I kind of speak sometimes in an idyllic way, but I also speak in the sense that I know that it's coming. So because I know that it's coming now, how can I get ahead of that to interdict it? Okay, if I do this, it's basically playing chess, right? Not the checkers, it's essentially playing chess. I'm going to do this to benefit myself, benefit the group. Now, who's going to come and fuck this up, and what can I do to stop it?
Now, see, because of your training and your history, you think strategically, but as a group, Black people don't think strategically.
Yeah,
right?
I,
I can't tell you how many times I hear black people talking about you just need to sit down and talk to him. What am
yeah,
I
yeah.
talking to him for?
Yeah.
What am I talking to? If he's a racist, let him go ahead and be a racist. What am I talking to him for about being a racist? My
Well,
only
so
job is to defend against it. I don't have to convince him to stop. Listen, I'm not God. I'm not Jesus Christ. I ain't got to. It ain't my job to convince you to be good, player. That's somebody else's job, and
yeah,
that's for you to answer to when you go to the next place. For right now, my only job is to defend against you. That's it,
You're
yeah.
and
absolutely
that's how we
correct.
should think.
Yeah,
You're
what they're
right.
trying to do is make is appeal it's a moral appeal, right? You're trying to appeal to their humanity, to their morality, and that doesn't bother anybody who doesn't have it, right? So you can't go in that direction. So now it's got to be okay. Now I got to come. Now I got to think of something that's going to work on you that's more harsh. What's the penalty that's going to get you to back off? I can't ask you nicely. So what do I got to? Now I got to escalate to get to the point, to
Well,
get
see,
you to back off of it.
I'm not saying you're wrong, Kev. I'm not saying you're wrong because that is true. But I've found our fundamental way of thinking is the problem.
Oh, I would
How do
agree with
I
you. I
how do
really
I
Well,
do.
get you right? How do I get you to do right
Well, there's a
by me?
reason for this, though. Like, the reason is that we're taking the assumption, and I mean, maybe not all of us, but like a lot of us have taken the assumption that we're all Christians and that, okay, well, if I can make this moral appeal, then they'll have this epiphany and then they'll have that come to Jesus moment and then they'll change their ways. And it's like, they don't really actually like get down with Christianity like that. They just wear it like a mask instead.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So
they do. I mean, they do get down with Christianity like that. I don't know if y'all realize who gave the okay for slavery. It
No,
was
It
a
no,
wasn't
Christian
Jesus Christ.
organization.
I'll tell you that.
that's a misquote from the Bible. That's not what it really says. But I do agree with Truth Teller on one thing. Like, how do I get them to do right? It ain't about that. It's about how I move them off the chessboard. And I'm
yeah,
a real Christian, and everybody who knows a real Christian, God has killed more people than the devil ever has. So, you know, you just gotta get them off the chessboard. That's all you need to do. Just get them off the chessboard.
yeah. When we're talking about
Make a whole
Christianity,
chessboard.
there's their version of Christianity and there's Black Christianity, right? And I would argue that Black people practice a more pure and innocent version and moral version of Christianity. All of that being said, that's actually our Achilles heel, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's good to have people like Trump ain't ish on our team, because he understands. Like, look, uh, we got two versions of Christianity over here. Mine is better, but I'm also willing to use my version of Christianity to make sure you don't get in my way. While you
Well,
sit here trying to make all of these talk about how great a Christian you are. So part of the issue and problem is that Black people have actually, done the good faith, interaction with non-Black groups, right? On the chance that they're going to do what it is they say they're going to do, which is they've never done that. We should have learned that, and the Native Americans should have learned that lesson too, right? All of that being said, you have to interdict all of these issues and problems before they become a problem. You can't operate in blind or good faith. You got to know, based on the history and what they're doing in front of you in present day, that they just don't have the morality in them. So you can't believe that. We've learned that lesson. Dr. King tried to teach us that lesson, right? Unfortunately, I've integrated my people into a burning house, right?
Yeah.
Which, people try to put that on him, but, that's a whole nother story. But my whole point is that he was operating in what he thought truly was good faith. When you look at Dr. King, his letter from Birmingham City Jail in 1963, when he was arrested like 50 plus times, but that one stands out because he wrote this long letter. He criticized the conservatives, the Christians. He criticized America as a whole. He pointed to the Constitution, and he actually referenced the Bible in that letter. It's actually one of his best things that he wrote, outside of all the other stuff in some of his speeches. That's why it stands out. But
It's
he's
it's one
saying,
of my
look,
favorites.
we're sitting here doing all of this stuff, and we're coming to you in good faith, and yet here you are doing everything against that while you're sitting here professing to be good people. You ain't good people, is what he was saying.
In the letter from Birmingham jail, MLK went hard in the paint about the white moderate. It was it was an
Oh yeah.
evisceration of that. He was not this little docile figure that people try to make him out to be.
Oh no. Yeah, you're right. He specifically chastised and criticized them harshly, he said, "You guys are actually worse than the Klan because I know what I'm getting when I deal with the Klan. But with you guys, you come to me as a friend with your hands out, shaking your hands, smiling and grinning in my face while putting a knife in my back."
Yep.
So there you go. And
he so most people think all the things that he went through was actually what got the Civil Rights Act signed, but it wasn't.
no, absolutely not. Go ahead and expound on
Yeah,
that, please. Elaborate.
I'll make it simple. It was the people's response when he was assassinated that got that bill signed. And
Well,
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it on here specifically what those things were. Look them up because they don't really talk about that publicly. Media, news, no, they don't really talk about what was popping off. Why they was like, all right, man, let's just go ahead and get this signed. It wasn't the
Well,
goodness of the white
well,
people heart that got it signed.
well. So let's kind of clear this up a little bit. So King was still present, and he was actually there at the signing of the Civil Rights Act, so 1964. He actually advocated and supported, and actually was present. I don't know if he was present, but I know he was an advocate of the 65 Voting Rights Act and the 65 Immigration Act. What you're talking about is the 68 Fair Housing Act, right? 1968. April 4th, 1968, Dr. King gets assassinated. Immediately after he's assassinated, riots break out all across the country, right? And then for about two straight weeks, black people were wilding out and tearing stuff up because they were upset, and rightly so. So that's how you get the Fair Housing Act signed. Now, those other bills, specifically the 64 Civil Rights Act, one of the reasons that those bills come about and the signing of those bills come about is, one, they were trying to, who was it? Johnson was trying to improve his legacy and then try to take some credit for something that Kennedy had already started prior to his assassination. But the other part of it too is that there was stuff going on in the background that was hellish and violent, and black people were wilding out and saying, "Look, if y'all are not going to do right by the black population, specifically black men, well then if you got no rules, neither do we." And that was their concern. So that's why. Remember, you guys got to remember when the Civil Rights Act was being signed, there were riots going on in the middle of all of that. People forget that. And it wasn't this clean. It wasn't this clean thing either. The Civil Rights Act 64 was actually filibustered for months. You had people who were fighting against it while there were riots going on, while the country was literally falling apart and on fire. That's how you got that bill signed. It wasn't out of goodness of the kindness of their heart, or we just got to do the right thing by these folks. We've been, we've done this long enough. We're just going to do it right now. It was like the country was going to tear itself apart, and black men specifically were like, "Look, at this point, we ain't got nothing to lose." Especially the young black men coming up, mad as hell. You're not doing it. You cracking them in the head, and they ain't done nothing wrong. Like if those are the rules, then those are the rules. Then we cracking heads on everybody.
Another important thing to kind of keep in mind is that the riots weren't entirely directionless. Like there was an economic element involved in that because we didn't have like digital records forever. Like we had a time when paper records actually were a thing. They actually existed. So when they were burning down some of these things, they were burning down loans and debt records as well. They were zeroing that stuff out.
Not only that, there was targeted destruction by black people. They were like, "Oh, we got a black mom and pop shop, black business, black residential area. You guys own it or not? Oh, you ain't on it? Get out, because we can get ready to burn this to the ground. But if it's yours, show us the paperwork. We'll leave you alone." Like it was that specific. Like that's what was going on. And so this is the miseducation of America, right? Not just the Negro, but America when it comes to the civil rights movement. Because again, the idea is, it was just so bad. We had a change of heart and we got this act signed. It was Johnson and Kennedy started it. And we wanted to, just extend his legacy and do all, and for the future generations, all this other blah, blah, blah. No, the country was on fire. That's how you get that stuff done. Right? Now, should you need those extreme circumstances in order to get people to do the right thing? Well, no, but sometimes you got to go in that direction.
Now, something else I stumbled upon, surveys of what people thought of Martin Luther King in them days. before any of the acts were signed in the early 60s. He wasn't even popular amongst black people.
No, he wasn't. Do you know why though? Can you elaborate?
Oh, he was a troublemaker, they said. I asked my mother about this too. So my mother is older, of course. She was in her early 20s, in the early 60s. So, so she was the young person. She was one of them young people, and he was trying to protest, but we didn't think it was going to amount to nothing. There was a lot of there was a lot of targeting of black people. She grew up in New York, Queens, New York, targeting the black people in the city when all of this was occurring in the South. Just a lot of other things, but they took surveys, white people surveys, and surveys with black people. He was not popular in either group, black people or white people.
Well, so black people saw him as there were the two reasons for both races, right?
Yeah.
White people saw him as a troublemaker. So you're right, and some black people did see him as a troublemaker. But but the general consensus among black people was that his methods of nonviolence and civil disobedience
wasn't enough.
That was it.
Wasn't
They're like, look, you've been marching and going around T cities. You've been getting arrested, getting cracked in the head. We saw
you ain't gonna do nothing, player.
We saw the dogs getting sicked on us. We saw, look, they'd have made legislation, and here you are. We got legislation from 1954 that says separate but equal is overturned, and here we are still getting sick, getting bit by dogs. So you know what? We got to move you out the way. You had basically Krypton had its chance. Now we got to get more aggressive out here, and that's how you get the rise of the Nation of Islam, who by the way had been there the entire time. But the focus comes on the Nation of Islam because of Malcolm X. And now you get the Black Panther Party, the Deacons of Self-Defense, the Black Liberation Army, and all these other, they call them militant groups. I don't frame them that way. I see it as an appropriate response to oppression that was being forced on a group of people, and brutalization that was unnatural. So when you're beating on somebody, they're going to actually give you a response. And the appropriate response for somebody cracking you up at the side of the head for no reason is you crack them back, right? That's how you get all these organizations. Before that, you had the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. You had the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You had the NAACP, right? You had the National Urban League. All of these nonviolent, quote unquote, organizations that was like, look, we're going to try to do this with a moral appeal. And the issue with black people at that time was like, look, Dr. King, we love you. You tried. But it ain't working, bro. It ain't working. So we're gonna go in a different direction. So that was black people's beef with Dr. King. Not so much that they hated him and they didn't want his help, but they're like, look, you tried it, it's not working. We're going in a different direction. We're gonna get more aggressive now. So that was their disapproval of King. Not so much out of like hate or just you're a bother to the nation. We see what you're trying to do, it's just not working. White people like openly hated him. His worst approval rating was among the non-black population. White people hated him to no end.
Yeah, they really hated him, and he wasn't even. He was just protesting peacefully. They hated his guts.
So because this is what you got to look at what they were doing to the peaceful protesters and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Now we don't want to get away from this too much because the topic is what Trump is doing, right? The topic is about so make America great again. What he's doing to these museums and how all of that relates. See, this is what I'm saying. So when you get rid of that, so even this is actually part of the point, is that even how we talk about the civil rights movement is improperly framed, right? I always tell people go, well, Dr. King, wanted us to integrate. No, he didn't. He never directed that. That was a United States government directive. Dr. King doesn't even come on the scene until 1955, right? All right. I mean, he was already in Alabama as a preacher. And I actually went to the church. So he's already in Alabama as a preacher. But 1954 was a Brown versus the Board of Education decision. That comes down from the Supreme Court, which means now it's a United States government directive to desegregate. They just used Dr. King as the face of this so-called desegregation / integration movement. But that wasn't his charge. His thing was like, look, if this is what we're going to do, let's do it, but let's do it properly. Again, that's him moving in blind faith, trying to think that these people were serious about what they were going to do and they're going to do it properly. So even so this is the danger of adjusting and revising history, because even today we're learning about the civil, just something as a major movement, a social movement as big as the civil rights movement. people still to this day associated with Dr. King, where he was the one that never directed it in the first place. He was just used as the face of a movement and a directive that was enforced by the United States government and not even enforced properly. See what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. So
Yeah.
the reason why I took us in this direction is because now you
Wait.
see how whitewashed what we were taught about this movement was. Now imagine how whitewashed that museum is.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea that you can get rid of slavery is so bad. All we talk about is how bad slavery was. Well, you have the so we're 150 plus years past enslavement, right? But we still have the negative and residual effects of that enslavement. So that's the issue and problem. What you got to do, and I always put this on President Johnson, right? Andrew Johnson. You know, they should have fixed it from the beginning, but since they did, that was the second chance for America to fix everything that was broken up to that point. Post 1865, it's very simple. You fully integrate formerly enslaved Black population into U.S. society. Make sure they got full benefits, rights, privileges, and protections as citizens, right? And then on top of that, you give them their reparations and their land and leave them the hell alone. That's it. That's all America had to do, and this wouldn't even be a discussion today.
Yeah, it's really like three strikes and you're out thing there, because like they could have done it on the beginning, on the front end, when this nation was constructed. They could have done it on the second construction during Reconstruction after the Civil War, and they could have done something once the Civil Rights Acts were going through. They could have also actually appropriately done affirmative action in a way that actually, instead of doing that, actually do reparations. Oh, by
Yeah.
the way, I think Champ Car is trying to get in. I don't know if anybody has the ability to let him in.
Oh, if he's back here, I don't know. I can't see him. I don't have the controls to actually see him back there. Roger may be able to fix that. But yeah, anybody have anything else to add?
I got to bounce.
So sorry, there's one more thing that I wanted to add to this, and that is of the whole point of okay. I think we dwell on the negative items from slavery when we're talking about the history of Black people in this country and reparations and anything related to our origin and lineage here. So reparations are owed because the finances from slavery is what fueled what we now know as the number one superpower on this planet. And the thing that keeps all other economies stable on this great green blue rock floating around in space. That's why we're owed reparations. Now I know slavery is negative, don't get me wrong, but that ain't necessarily why. They took out a loan, they owe us our money. It's that simple. That's literally what it is.
Well, yeah, that I would agree with you on that. Now, here's the other part of it too. So this is so any discussion about reparations should always include the fact that the people who benefited from Black enslavement, even Jim Crow, all of that stuff, they still benefit and their wealth still exists to this day, and they've been passing it down from generation.
No, Kevin, you don't understand. No. Everybody who's a United States citizen benefits.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that too. But you're right.
And not even that, those who come here and take advantage of the system that was built from that are benefiting.
Yeah.
If you're an immigrant and you immigrated here, you got a job, you're paying taxes, you're taking benefits, you got yourself a blue passport. Guess what you owe?
Yeah,
you're a beneficiary of that loan that was taken out. So therefore, you're part of the party that has to pay back the debt because you joined the team. It's literally that simple.
Yeah, and people don't really actually understand how big of an issue, how big in the economy slavery actually was. Like people actually use slaves as assets to finance loans and stuff.
Yes.
You have like more than half of the railroad, that infrastructure that was built by slaves. The Chinese didn't come in and start doing things until they were talking about the west end of it. Like
there's no area of business or financial industry that slavery wasn't the base of.
Exactly.
The stock exchange, the first stock was a slave. insurance, the railway system, county governments and state governments owned slaves to do construction work when they were building up their infrastructure. They would loan them out to businesses to make money on the side. So businesses could use slaves to do what they needed to do for business. Right? Let's not even talk about the medical field, medicine, right?
Oh,
We
that's a big
we don't
one.
even need to go there. That
Experimentation on people, like human beings, to further science. Yeah, that was a part of it too.
Yeah. And not only that, the theft of all the scientific idea and knowledge from slaves, because they did do that as well, right? We couldn't patent anything under our own names. Guess who took them? So let's not even talk about other inventions that were contributed, things that are the children of the slaves put in and didn't get credit for. You know, all the great stuff that we use today. Literally, we are the foundation of the country. And that's because of our contribution to it, not just because we were just here.
Yeah,
And
and
most
you
people
guys came
try
up a
to
little bit later,
step
but
over that.
yeah, you guys came up a little bit later, but that's how I was framing it. And honestly, you know, if people in Trump's cabinet, and he's got one or two black people in there. I don't know I don't even know their names. They're so insignificant. But the thing is that they need to be the ones explaining to him, hey, look, what you're doing is going about this in the wrong way. Leave the Black American History Smithsonian alone. All you're doing is, you know, it is a clear effort at trying to downplay, minimize, slavery. And despite the negativity associated with it, you yourself are moving away from the actual triumphs out of that era. Black people still were successful during slavery. We have millionaires while black people were enslaved. The free ones, anyway, free blacks. You get millionaires. You get people doing great and amazing things. Under enslavement, you get people doing great and amazing things out of enslavement all throughout the Jim Crow era. So that's the accomplishments you need to be talking about. And then you add on top of that, now you can add the collective of America to it. Once you get past, like the 1950s, 60s, going into the 70s, like, okay, this is how everybody was contributing to all of that. Yeah, that was black people mostly, but you know what? They had successes during that time frame. See, because this thing is, all we talk about is how bad slavery was. Well, there were good things even happening during that time frame. The fact that he doesn't know that points to the miseducation of everybody in America, right? Black people were doing great and amazing things despite enslavement, despite Jim Crow. Even still to this day, despite something negative that somebody does, we're still going to be great and amazing. In a lot of ways, that works against us because people go, well, shoot, if y'all can do great and amazing things, even while we're trying to screw you over, what happens when we don't screw you over? It's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Right. Another thing, going back to this revisionist history. So whenever this is another problem that I have too. So there's about 140,000 miles of railroad that exists in the United States, right? I just looked it up. Now, out of that 140,000 miles, the Chinese built about 700 miles. They started out in west and somewhere in California. I think it was more or less, I forget where they started, and they actually met at a point in Utah. Like I think it's called Promontory Point, Utah, or something like that. But that's where the East meets West. There was a big celebration, inauguration about that, all of that stuff, right? That's what they did. 700 miles versus 100,000 miles plus of railroad. That was primarily built by not only enslaved people, but people that black men who were actually forced into enslavement, a new form of enslavement under the convict leasing system.
Yeah, that's an order of magnitude difference.
Yeah, exactly. That's an order of magnitude difference. But whenever we talk about the railroads, who does that credit go to?
Chinese.
Exactly. Because, a matter of fact, the reason the Chinese was there, the reason the Chinese are allowed into the United States was to replace the formerly enslaved population. They're like, well, we're not going to make white folks do this work. So let's bring in another group that don't have this history. And the Chinese got here and they're like, okay, well, yeah, we getting paid, but we also get screwed over too. And damn, they're working us damn near to death like slaves, which is what was happening, even though they were getting paid. So they weren't technically slaves. And I'm not even trying to say that they were, because there's no equivalence. But what I'm saying is that, 700 miles of railroad, and I'm not laughing at that, but versus 100,000 plus miles, and under inhumane conditions under both enslavement and the convict leasing system. Are you kidding me? But then when we talk about the railroads, I'm telling you, all I hear is about what the Chinese did. That's
Yep.
revisionist history, and that's the stuff that Trump is trying to do. So this actually relates to the actual topic. Like you can't you this is why black people got to know better than anybody else what our history is, because other people are going to tell you something different. They're going to remember it different. They don't even remember it. They're going to learn it in a way that makes them look less guilty, that makes them look less negative, that makes them look less vicious and terrible. You got to say it for what it is. And the thing about it is, I don't really see black people all mad and angry and upset about what the history was. Now, we can be mad and upset about the fact, the stuff that's still outstanding that hasn't been resolved from those time periods and the stuff that's still going on today. That's what I always try to remind people, because there's stuff that's happening today that 50 years from now, somebody's going to deny that it actually happened. And they'll be like, well, yeah, but that was 50 years ago. Like the argument of, well, you were never a slave, then somebody's gonna be like, well, you weren't alive in 2025 when that was going on. The stuff that's happening right
Yeah.
now that's being denied is going to be acknowledged 50 years from now, right? And somebody's going to go, well, yeah, but that wasn't me. That was my grandfather from 50 years ago, and I had nothing to do with that.
That's
Like
why it's all
those
about the
arguments are not going to
institutions,
change.
the whole
Say
big
again?
institution. I said that's why it's all about institutions, the whole big institution that we have in America as an American entity. It's America that owes. But I gotta drop. I got some meetings and stuff to go. But thanks for having me up, y'all. And I'll catch you brothers next time.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I'll go ahead and until Roger comes back, and then at some point I'll go ahead and drop off myself. But what I will do to kind of keep it going until maybe Roger gets back, and if it goes too long, we'll go ahead and shut down. But I can't acknowledge any. I don't have access to the what you call it, the cash apps, and I don't think we're monetized for super chats just yet. But at any rate, I'll go ahead and take some questions.
Okay, I'm back. I assume the broadcast is over with. So if y'all still here watching, I see 33 people still here watching y'all. I guess I'm closing out officially. I hope y'all had a great time here. Be with us Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Chicago time, y'all. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Chicago time. I'm going to have to listen to the rest of the conversation myself, but y'all have a great day. So we'll see you tomorrow. Long live the habitual line steppers. I'm laughing at you, Devin. You're hilarious, Devin, there, brother. Long live the habitual line steppers, y'all. I'm Roger. I'm right. And I'm out.